All right, y'all. Welcome to All Politics are Local, America's number one
Number one.
hip hop radio talk show. Y'all know if it's Friday, y'all know it's time for All Politics are Local. So tonight, of course, you all know up first is going to be the mayor with the mayor's forum. And then what's coming up after that, Zaid? What's the rundown? You muted. Zaid, you muted.
Gloria J. I'm steady talking to Gloria J. Brown, Marshall, rough sister. Gloria's been with us once before.
Mhm.
Going to talk about Martyrs Day. This black response to the 4th of July that's going to happen in several cities on July 5th, the anniversary of Frederick Douglass's "What to the American Slave is Your 4th of July." And she'll talk about Martyrs Day and how that's going to look in New York City. Gloria is also the host on WBAI's Law of the Land. Rough sister, looking forward to having her back. Adam Marshall, 7 o'clock. Adam was the young Army medic that was beaten up and arrested at Delaney Hall several weeks ago, and I got static in the background, and I'm trying to tune that out, right? He just testified. There was a federal hearing done by members of the Department of Homeland Security right here. And no, in fact, here's the mayor now. The mayor was one of those who testified. It was right at City Hall. Adam, by virtue of what he had gone through, had been amongst those that testified. And Adam's going to share that and his other experiences at Delaney Hall. At 7:45, Black Solidarity with Cuba. Professor Tony Menelik Vandermeer and Dr. Rosemary Milley, both here to me. Spent a lot of time in Cuba with both of them, right? They will be talking about a mobilization that is taking place all over the country now to affirm Black solidarity with Cuba. And we will be in Harlem tomorrow on the streets to affirm that solidarity. And hopefully, we'll see what's going to happen with 8:30 with our beloved DJ Rhino. The mayor has come. Let me get off this.
All right. All right. Peace, man. Welcome to the show. Hope all is well.
Yeah.
Can
you hear me? Because you guys are low.
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay. Y'all a little low over there for me. Yeah.
Yeah. What's going on, man? Hey, listen, first off, let me say happy Juneteenth day to you, brother.
Yeah, happy Juneteenth.
Yeah. And, the other thing is, let's get this out of the way. I want to say congratulations on your 4th term. Welcome back for another 4 years, my brother.
Thank you.
I heard somebody say to you, man, when we did that rally at the church, somebody said to you, said, man, you can stay as long as you want. You can stay forever.
Yeah, well, I won't be doing that, brother.
Yeah. Well, listen, man. I guess the question that we should ask is, in this next 4 years, what you got planned? What you thinking of?
Well, we're gonna be focusing a lot on food insecurity. There's a lot of attention on Mondani and his grocery. Newark, we're about to open up 5. We've been working on that for a while. Obviously we don't have the same stage as they have, but we're about to open up 5 grocery stores with partnering with nonprofits in the city, 5 mutual aid grocery stores that are going to do emergency food plus pay based on your income that the city is working with nonprofits to seed and begin. So we started building them out, getting the refrigeration, doing everything we were supposed to do way before all of the other stuff. So we're working on that. We're going to expand that and keep that moving. We're going to be working on 3rd grade literacy scores, trying to get our 3rd graders to read on par. We also going to be working on building more affordable housing, obviously, in the city. We got a plan to try to expand that and expedite that, try to compound it. We also going to double the spend in Black and brown businesses in this community. I mean, just to show that it can be done. The people who's doing nothing, we're doing more than them, but we want to even double that so we could show people that it not only can be done, it should be done, and what the impact it's going to have on our community. So, I mean, those are basic things that we're going to be working on. We're also going to fight with the rest of the people around the state to make sure this, this John Lewis voting right bill is passed. Just met with Institute for Social Justice and all of the folks over there at St. John's in Newark in the South Ward, talking about the Truth and Reconciliation and Repair bill that's being sponsored by Assemblywoman Melina Reynolds Jackson and Senator Angela McKnight to lead towards some kind of Truth and Reconciliation and Repair committee, but also a march towards reparations. And I know those are not directly about Newark, but Newark, it is about Newark. And I think that not only just the governmental stuff that we're trying to do, but also the social justice things that we need to be fighting for as well.
And the thing is, man, is that, I don't think we're having enough. I mean, at least I don't think so. I don't think we're having enough conversation, particularly in the city around that. When you talk about the social justice issues, I don't think that we are. I think that we need to, begin to broadcast. I know Zaid said that we're going to have one of the brothers on that was on the panel with you coming on later. That's going to talk a little bit about that, right, Zaid?
Yes, sir.
Right, I heard him. Yep.
Yeah, that's right. I think you testified right after him. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. That was the Congress people came through from the Homeland Security Committee. Also had a brother there from Texas. What's his name? The congressperson from Texas. I can't think of the brother's name right now. Got the same name as this famous singer, but always very outspoken.
Oh, Al Green.
Al Green. That's right. Al Green.
Yeah.
That's
Good
right.
to see Benny Thompson, because Benny Thompson, could possibly lose his district behind.
That's right.
Voting rights shenanigans that's going on with the Supreme Court and these.
That's right.
State legislators.
Yeah, and I think it's important for us, as elected officials, to start talking about these issues, not just like the regular governmental things that we need to do. We definitely need to fill potholes, take care of services, get rid of these bad landlords, all the stuff that's going on. But all of this stuff is symptomatic of a system that's gone astray. Well, really, I don't want to say astray. It's been working, but a system that's just wrong that we have to right. And as long as the system exists the way it exists, all of these things that we're fighting against will always show its head up. We fight pushing it back. It rear its ugly head in one form or the other. And we use a lot of energy and time to get small steps and small gains, and they push back down on us like Sisyphus, as my father would say. One step forward, two steps back. Sisyphus, you roll a rock up the hill, the gods roll it back down on your head.
That's right.
That's really what we in this process are doing all of the time until we challenge them straight ahead.
Yeah, the other thing you talked about, man, is you talk, and you already know. I mean, we had this conversation when we first started the Mayor's Forum. When we start talking about reparations, we always talk and having these studies, and I guess, I think I'm more. I don't know about you, but I think I'm more leaning more on what states can do as opposed to waiting on what the federal government can do
Right.
on that level, and I think that for me, that was one of the hopes I had for you being elected governor, to be able to move that ahead on that level. I don't, I don't know what your thoughts are on that or yours, Zaid, but, do you think we're going to see, especially now with Ryan, moving forward from New Jersey
Right.
next month. Where do you think that's going to go?
That's a good point, man. Ryan Hager was steadily on these people's neck, and we need that. Like, that's the only way. We got to push them. These people find money. Look, the thing went crazy at Delaney Hall. They found $20 million to give to, immigrant communities for counsel and for lawyers that means they had that already. They just chose not to do it. They did it. The kind of pressure, that's because of the pressure that was being put on them. And so we need to exert that same level of pressure to get the things that we need, from the state, and, push so we can win in these midterms, so we can do the same for the federal government as well. And that's important, right? We have to. And if we don't do that, then we basically will get nothing. We have to exert pressure on these people.
Right. That, and that's always been my concern, and and especially where we are now in this particular climate, because I think that, we need people, not just like Ryan and yourself, but we need the community to be able to rile up on that and understand that it is really a matter of pressure, right? We need to make sure that we're putting pressure on those folks, because if we're not saying anything or nobody's moving on it, I mean, they sort of think that we're not even interested in getting that move forward. I know New York signed something on that, but I'm not sure where New Jersey is on that, or even if the governor is even tuned in on that level.
Well, no, I honestly, I don't think, and if they are tuned in, I don't think they really are willing to do anything about it. I think they're afraid more about their political position than anything else, or what the polling and the ratings would say. But ultimately, like, it's not going to happen until we raise the energy and raise the level on it. Like, we have to, right? And we will have to even challenge our allies to participate in this stuff. Like, so when our people are hit and they attack, it's usually us out there. We need everybody outside, right? Not just us fighting for other people's issues. They have to be standing with us on the issues that are important to our community as well. And we have to hold them accountable for that. At the same time, like, we need the same level of participation from folks.
Right. And that's why, I think that, I mean, I'm not sure, what's going to happen with the brother who is, I forget the brother's name, who's supposed to be stepping in as the interim president CEO for Ryan. But I don't, because he's kind of.
It's a lady.
Now Patel is going to be the interim executive director.
I mean, I know he was leading that. I would hope that we all would step in, but I don't know.
That's the answer. That's the answer, Ed. That's the answer.
Yeah,
we got to all step in. We all got to step up.
Yeah, that is the answer.
They have a young brother. His name is young brother Brutus, young Haitian brother, who's actually running the campaign around the state reparations bill. The study that for New Jersey's history and slavery and its impact on racism since then is a stellar study. Study's been done, right? It's just a question of whether this the state can be made to own up with a comparable study to recognize its validity in the move ahead. One place where I did see some promise on that front, on the question of allies, and it really emerged in the aftermath of the George Floyd summer and in the state of California, because California is one of those states pushing hard for a statewide reparations bill, and they did a over 400-page study, right? But we saw the emergence of the Japanese community, because the Japanese had been interned in concentration camps in World War II. And guess what? They got reparations.
Right.
Faith-based community in a very interracial way had shown up in California for that state effort, right? So we do see the beginning of some allies outside of our community on that. We've got natural allies, to your point, Ed, that should be with us all along. Right. And we need to turn the volume up on some of them, to the mayor's point.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, but it has to start with us, though. We gotta. And I said that today. Like, we can't expect people to give us the reparations we deserved until we demand it the way it needed to be demanded. Right? We gotta organize ourselves to get these things right away, especially in a place like New Jersey, where it's overwhelming Democratic control and a slew of Black people sprinkled in all throughout that. Right. in a county where we are the majority. I mean, there's huge counties in New Jersey that swing all statewide elections where we are heavily counted. And
Right.
so we have to figure out a way to bring that together and bring it to bear on all this stuff that's going on the state side and nationally, by the way. So I agree. I mean, Ryan and the Institute for Social Justice was on it about reparations. That
Right.
we're gonna have to continue to do that, and we're gonna have to raise the mantra and raise our voices a little bit more to get them the support that they need. Absolutely. You know,
Yeah.
I know Larry and I have been talking about doing a statewide march to Trenton, a rally in Trenton about the Voting Rights Act, the John Lewis Voting Rights Bill, whether it's passed or not. Like if it's not passed, we there, and if it is passed, we there. If it's passed, we there celebrating. If not, we there demanding that it be passed.
And
Right.
we both testified in support of it too, and we were not quiet. When we
Right. That's we need to go down there in droves. I'm talking about thousands of people, not the basic 200, 300 people. We need to take every organization that we know of, from the NAACP to Urban League, to all of the organizations that exist, POP, everybody that we know of, the urban mayors, all of the folks that can galvanize people. We need to galvanize them and get them down there. These urban Black mayors around the state should be clear that they need to be supporting these voting rights bills, or they won't be in office. You see what's happening nationally. That we need to get their constituents from Linden and Rahway and Plainfield and in Trenton and and all these places, in Camden and Newark and Orange and East Orange and Irvington. We need to be down there, right? And the places in the South,
meetings
Willingboro,
state, all of them folks.
Yeah,
come up, let's go.
Yeah, and all of them, Willingboro and Cape May and Whitesboro, Asbury Park.
Right.
Man, we in all those places. We come out and pull our allies with us. And even if some of our allies will show up, but even if a lot of them don't, if all of us came, that would even be enough. We got to clear these churches out, these masjids out, and file our people down there and show them we serious about what we're talking about here.
Right. Right. I think that is what we need to be picking up, man, because I think that, going into the fall and going into, these last 4 years, well, in Trump's case, only 2 years, but I mean, in terms of, making sure that we rile people up and get people prepared for the November midterm elections and all of those things. We've got to, we've got to find a way to motivate our people, because, I think a lot of folks was motivated, Mayor, when you were running for governor, but I think that right now it seems like people have gone back to sleep. Right?
Yeah, because we event, we know how to mobilize. It's the organization that's the problem. We don't have any real mass organizations like we used to, but the mobilization is easier to do. People mobilize around events, around places, around things, but the long-term protracted struggle is through organization.
Yes, sir.
And you need these organizations to sustain themselves and a membership to be strong. That's what you need. And that is really what the problem is, and the answer at the same time. But I think we mobilize around this voting rights bill in New Jersey, and we could scare the bejesus out of these folks in this state for sure, and make a signal to the rest of the states of what they should be doing. Like, we need to have tens of thousands of people down there talking about this stuff, 100,000%, and let it follow suit around the country. We need to do that. We have no excuse in New Jersey. All these people came out for these No Kings rallies. I went to a No Kings rally in Montclair. It was easily 3,000 to 4,000 people out there.
Right.
Easily. And a lot of them wasn't us. We have to mobilize ourselves down to Trenton, our folks, and get them. If we get a third of them and all of us, it's enough.
Right. Right.
It's more than enough.
But that is exactly what we said, Mayor, on one of the earlier mayor's forums, where we said that, one of the problems is if you go to these No Kings rally, you barely see us at these rallies.
Right.
And that presents a
problem. We hijacked it in Newark.
Huh?
Right.
We hijacked it in Newark. We ran the last several ones in Newark.
Right. Yeah, I think we the only like city like predominantly black and brown that actually had one.
And that's terrible because, at the end of the day, the only way we're going to be strong enough to be able to push a reparations bill is that we've got to get that 3,000-4,000 people every time we're rallying so that they can carry that message back to their communities, right? We've got to kind of get that. And I think that's why I told Zaid I'm going to reach out for Tamika, because that's, they having a rally based around that tomorrow.
Yeah,
in
in Harlem.
Yeah.
She called me. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think we, I mean, you hear me say this all the time, man, and it's not an original idea by me, but one of the things that's always been said is that we have low information, right? And then what happens is that we start reacting, and by that time, we're trying to organize folks, and sometimes that's too late, right?
Yeah.
We coming at the last minute. We've got to begin to organize, and that's why I think what Tamika's doing tomorrow, and and what they're trying to do to get people out and get people, because Rakia and them already doing that down in the South.
Yeah,
they're organizing folks, right? And we sort of late to the party as it is, trying to get people around the voting rights bill and what's being taken from us and how we need to be organized. I think Larry is really the only one organizing around that. I haven't really seen anybody else doing it, and thank God Tamika and them are picking it up in New York. I think we got to pick up more in New Jersey in terms of doing that. But I know you don't want to hear me say it, man, but I say it all the time. I think that it's a lack of leadership for us, right? Because we need leadership as a people. And I posted something where I said, Farrakhan is in his 90s. We don't really have that many black trusted leaders anymore. And unfortunately, that's what we need. We need people who can lead our people. And we're not, and we have all of these self-proclaimed leaders who come and all they want to do is bash other folks. They're not really leading any people, and they don't really have the skills to do it.
Right.
And so because they're not organizing.
Well, that's one attention. It's different between wanting the stage and wanting to lead.
Right. Right. I mean, and everybody that come on, and I say this, all the time. Principal Capelli and I talk about this. People come and you can self-proclaim yourself a leader, but where's the people? You the leader. Where's the people behind you? Where they at?
Right.
You leading with nobody with you, and that's and they just, and the people that are with you are just as confused, right?
Right.
And so
Right.
not going anywhere.
Right.
And so, I know that's why I say that all the time. We need bona fide leadership. And I think that's one of the problems that young people are having, trying to, follow certain people, because they'll see Larry and even though he's he's knowledgeable, even though he's genuine, young people are listening for a different kind of language that they're looking to hear from.
Right.
And we've got to find a way to rile them up. I mean, man, you remember, when we were coming through, we had Soldier, right? We had all of the writers and all of that was riling young people up, and they were ready to go. I think that, like I said, the last time I saw people being excited was when you were running for governor. Now I don't really see that.
Yeah.
And I'm out there. I'm, Zaid and I, are tuned in every day, what's happening, but we don't really see that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I think that people being sucked up by social media and these algorithms that are out here that are designed to put out mal and misinformation and, not just low information, but bad information. And that's just to, lull people to sleep and do whatever, and all the other kind of distractions and confusion that they have. And it's, people, there's no really steady meetings, no really steady reading, no stuff going on and on and on. Just, because if that happened, you begin to focus in on who actually is the enemy, right? And begin to really hit them and attack them right now we are in a place where there's a lot of confusion out here.
Yep.
You know, and a lot of folks are thriving in this chaotic space. You know, I think Trump adds to this chaotic space. I think you got anger mixed with confusion, mixed with no information. Get you what we have today. I was listening to, like, for example, the NAACP is telling the sports, the basketball, football player, the athletes to really think about not going to these states that are like taking away our voting rights, and you have people on social media attacking them. This doesn't make sense to me. Like attacking the NAACP. Like, you know, there's some things I disagree with the NAACP. That ain't one of them.
Right.
Like, and just like calling them, saying they cooning for the Democratic Party. This ain't got nothing to do with the Democratic Party or the Republican Party or no party for that matter. This has to do with us and our dignity and our respect. And you should not be going to lift up a state, represent a state that is undermining our right to vote and our ability to empower ourselves. Right. This doesn't make any sense. Nobody should have to tell you to do that for you to want to do it. But the NAACP has a big thing, and I'm listening to all these people on Facebook and Instagram attack the NAACP.
Right.
Well, for this thing, I mean, it's just bad information. And then the algorithm feeds that and couples and sends it out more and more and more and more. And it's just a sign of where we are. And we have not created a real organized strategy to respond to this serious misinformation that's out there. I mean, people attack Tamika Mallory. They attack Angela Rye. They attack all these people out here. These folks, and you don't even know who these people are. I was telling Deborah Smith Gregory today, she put out a video, she said, and there's all kinds of people saying crazy stuff. I said, you don't even know who those people are. You don't even know if those people who are responding to you, if they're really those people on the actual internet. They could be somebody completely different.
That's right.
You know, it could be anybody in another country doing that somewhere. But I mean, and that is what we're up against at that level, which means that we have to be smarter in our organizing, more precise in it, more directed, and it damn sure means we need a lot more young people involved in what's going on, because they know how to deal with this stuff more and better than we do. That's for sure. Better than I do. I would say that.
Right. And again, man, that's why I say that, you know, they need honest leadership, right? You can't have, you know, people who proclaim to be leaders but have no training, never been part of an organization themselves,
right?
Don't know anything about that, you know. And you know, I heard Minister Farrakhan say, you know, when I was a young man, he said years ago, he said that, you know, you need to be a follower long before you become a leader. You know, you need to make sure you can follow leadership. You can take orders, right?
Right.
If you don't know anything about that, you want to just put yourself in a position and give them. These young people ain't going for that, man.
Right.
You know?
Well, they ain't really seen no organization like that, though. I mean, at the end of the day, you can't lead unless you followed, and that's for sure. So I agree with that 100,000%. Like, you can't be a general unless you're a soldier.
Right.
So I feel like, you know, because of this false kind of pseudo stage that exists out here, anybody can prop themselves up as something, can create an identity for themselves, put themselves out there as somebody and have people following them, which makes it more dangerous because the agent provocateurs is easy to be one of these today, because you can instantly get a following and get in a crew because people see you or follow you on social media. Then you can show up, oh, that's the guy from social media. Then you get in there and people are listening to you, and you could be a straight provocateur.
Yeah.
Don't nobody have to vouch for you being a part of no organization. You don't have to do nothing. You just have to put up a 50, 60 post saying all kind of craziness. Say the most radical thing you can think of, so forth and so on. Put yourself in a persona of a certain way, and before you know it, people are looking to you as something. But really, you have not organized anything.
Nope.
We Marcus Garvey organized over 1 million people. No social media, no internet, no Instagram, no Facebook, no TikTok. Over 1 million people.
Yeah.
Had a newspaper, a boating line, all kind of farms, all kind of stuff. So did Elijah Muhammad, by the way.
Yep. Yep.
So,
And-
so the possibilities are endless, right? Our ability to do that now. I think these people learn from those eras and are working whatever they can to make sure nothing like that exists again. Is what J. Edgar Hoover said. We got to prevent the rise of a black messiah, somebody that could mobilize these folks and get them, to respond in the way that we need to respond collectively.
Yeah.
Heroin and crack and all this other stuff thrown into our community and our neighborhoods, weapons and gangs and all kinds of madness didn't do nothing but weaken and destroy the strains and generations of growth of leadership. And I think all that was done purposely. War on drugs, all of it is done purposely. Mass incarceration, all of it, and all of that impacts our young people and our ability to organize movements the way we need to organize them today. And the way they're using the internet against us now in our community is just massive. And so we have to, just on a positive note, like we got some really solid, brilliant people out here, man. And we just gonna have to connect more. I think we need to have more conferences, more opportunities to get together, more opportunities to talk, foster more reading and people studying and passing out books and literature and mobilizing as much as we possibly can. We need to do that. And we can't wait years and years and years for something to happen for us to do it. We can't wait for somebody to get shot or somebody to be incarcerated or something bad to happen. We have to be organizing and pushing, like the constant fight for reparations, the constant fight for voting rights, constant fight to have our communities treated with respect. Like we need to constantly organize around that and unite with other people and get them to organize with us and challenge folks. We got to challenge people. We got to challenge our brothers and sisters in the Arab community, in the Palestinian community, in the Muslim community, and tell them, look, we support Palestinians' right to self-determination. We support getting rid of settlers out of from committing violence and genocide in the community. But we need you to support voting rights in our community. We need you to support reparations. We need you to support this young man, Carmelo Anthony, who was being charged for murder for life. We need you to support this stuff. Same conversation we need to have with the immigrant community, who think is like who we know that we need to be supporting. Who we take hits for. I take hits for standing from my own people, for standing with them, because we haven't gotten the things that we need. So they trying to figure out why you over there when we ain't got what we need. But because we have to be over there. And because I sacrifice myself to be over there, then we need you to be over here. We have to make those demands. We have to make those demands.
Yeah. But you absolutely right, man, because that was what Tamika said to me. She said, we've got to start meeting more. Right. We've got to start having meetings where all of us can get together. COVID is over. So we got to do that. Man, I know we out of time. So we're going to give you the last word. If there's any announcements you want to make, anything, you want people to be aware of.
Yeah, no, I mean, we will be organizing this march or this rally down in Trenton. And I want people to be on alert and be on lookout for that. We're having a Juneteenth celebration tomorrow on Bergen Street. That's all day over here in the South Ward. And people should be aware. If you have nothing to do for Juneteenth, come on over and hang out and celebrate with us as well. But there's a lot going on. You need to get involved, stay in touch. The fight, the Truth, Reconciliation, and Repair bill that's being put on the Assembly and Senate floor. We need to make sure we follow that and we push for that. And the voting rights bill is in the Senate, passed in the House, or I should say in the Assembly here in New Jersey. And now we're waiting for the senators to pass it. But either way, whether it passes or not, we're going to be down in Trenton in force. So thank you, brothers, man.
All right, man. Thank you for coming through, man, to do the mayor's forum, brother. All right, man. Peace. All right, there. All right, Zaid. I think we got some of your guests in the back.
Excellent. Yeah. Adam is here. Oh, y'all both. Now you're both two separate segments.
So you want to
Adam, you're early. but you're a good soldier. You're not late. You're late at the bus. You.
We can put Adam back in the background and
Come
give.
back. Come back on the 7th. I got to
Absolutely.
take care. Martial law say I got to take care of the queen. Now, and Gloria, I know where you try. You probably saying where he get this martial law from. And I have to say it to you, right? All the books that you have done and all of your profound, audacious legal bearing. He's an ancestor now, but in Black Panther Party we had Marshal Eddie Conway. Did 44 years in prison. I'm sure you're familiar with Eddie, right? But his narrative is called martial law.
Oh, okay. Yes, I remember him. I remember
Yes,
him.
whenever your name comes up, my stuff starts running together between the two of you. Well, welcome back. This is not your first ride with us. Welcome back. I'm glad to have you back. But more than that, I'm glad to see you doing all that you do. And I wanted to absolutely bring you back to today because this country is getting ready to go through a psychosis of a memory lane with its 250th anniversary of this republic we call the United States of America. It's not going to address the harm that it did by having our ancestors enslaved long before they even became a republic. Right? They ain't gonna touch that. And so there's some things we got to do for ourselves.
Yes.
And July 5th, and I used to use this as a monologue in my acting days, Gloria. What to the American slave is your 4th of July, right?
Right.
Comes this mobilization and recognition and remembrance that we're calling Martyrs Day, right? So, Gloria, I want you to just ride back, be comfortable on your natural, and tell everybody about Martyrs Day. What's that's going to look like?
Well, I was working on my book, A Protest History of the United States, which is my last book. Over 500 years of protest stories from the indigenous, slave uprisings as protests, women's protests, anti-war protests, labor protests, all these different protests, and the people who died protesting. And so the last 15 months, I'd spent working on a book tour. So I'd spent years on the book, A Protest History of the United States, published by Beacon Press, which is a social justice press for people who need to know about Beacon Press. And I was 15 months into my book tour, and I said, you know what? I'm doing this book tour. I'm going to places like Albuquerque, New Mexico, LA, Memphis, Tennessee, Little Rock, Nashville, Houston. I'm in Sarasota, Florida, of course, in New Jersey, which I really like, going there, and, a source of knowledge bookstore, all these places. But I did something that the politicians haven't really been doing as much as they should, which is to go out and talk with the people. And so the folks who were out,
Wait. I want you just to say that again, because I want everybody to hear that last thing you just said.
because I'm wondering when are the politicians going to go out and talk with the people?
I mean,
Tell us what
if this is not the time, when is it going to be the time?
Yes, and I know this is a dangerous time. Don't get me wrong, it's a dangerous time. And I felt that because it's like, yes, I'm a Black woman, which is an iconic figure in the world, in world history, to be an African American woman, but I'm also a woman in the world, meeting with strangers in all these different places and many more. I was in dozens of cities, from Chicago, Detroit. I mean, I'm talking about around the country. I was in places in Connecticut like 5 times. I was in DC, I don't know, probably half a dozen times. And I'm there speaking about protest, speaking about this nation, speaking about the dual personality of this country, that on the one hand talks about liberty and justice for all, and on the other hand is an empire builder, a crusher of souls, and it will sell a family on the auction block. Those two things and all have always been in conflict in this country. But the people who have died as activists, starting with the indigenous, starting with Crazy Horse and Crispus Attucks. When you start thinking about the people who have been activists and died in this country, we don't talk about them. It's like it never happened. That other erasure that takes place in this country. So they erase the people all the way up to Renee Good died this year, and they act like this didn't happen. And so it's not just like, oh, it's so long ago because it was history. People forgot. People forgot or want to forget. This country kills activists. This country kills protesters, it kills people who speak up, and then wants to forget the people who actually spoke up. Vernon Dahmer, for example, in 1966, was burned alive in his home. They set his home on fire and wouldn't let him get out of his own home, burned the home down around him, and he died of third-degree burns. And this is in 1966.
Yes.
Why? Because he was a person who had African American, had enough money to actually pay the poll tax for the poorer Black farmers. And when the sheriff and the others found out about it, they went to his home, threatened him. But he said something. Vernon Dahmer always said, he was a member of the NAACP, he was an activist. He said, if you don't vote, you don't count. And so my book, A Voting Rights War, the last few pages of that book, I have Vernon Dahmer's quote, if you don't vote, you don't count. So when you start thinking about American martyrs, the people who died protesting, Jimmy Lee Jackson is the reason why John Lewis came to Selma. And then after that protest over the Edmund Pettus Bridge was aborted violently by law enforcement, quote unquote, then you started to have Martin Luther King and the others come down for the other attempts to cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge. But it was Jimmy Lee Jackson who was holding a voting rights protest in his murder that caused all that to happen in the first place. Nobody remembers Jimmy Lee Jackson. And so that's why I think it's important. These are American martyrs. And so I believe, and this is what came to me during my book tour for a Protest History of the United States book, I said, I have to do more. I'm talking to the people, all the people that I got to meet around the country. Ask me, what else can I do? And I would say to them, and this is what I say, ask yourself what else you can do in this moment. I can't tell you. I don't live in your community. I don't know all your skill set, but ask this computer brain of yours what else you can do. And if you ask that question, it will come. So I asked that question of myself, when I was like between flights in different hotels and this, that, and the other, flying around the country, what else can I do? And it was from that Martyrs Day was born, that the least I can do is raise the name and have a tribute for these people and call them what they are, and they are martyrs. Whether or not they were slain as protesters or like George Floyd, their deaths led to social justice movements. They should be people we see as American martyrs. So this is the first U.S. Martyrs Day. Other countries have Martyrs Day and have people they consider martyrs. For example, Mahatma Gandhi is considered a martyr in India. They have a Martyrs Day for him. So I think about Martin Luther King Day, but I also think about all the people also who, some of them have been known nationally, but others have not, that need to have their names said. And so Martyrs Day became what I'm working on in July 5th because of Frederick Douglass, as you pointed out.
I didn't realize, and I appreciate you lifting all of that up, how that emerged out of the work of your travels, your engagement around your book, and you feeling these ancestors talking to you, because that's what's happening.
Yes.
They're all up in your head, they're all up in your ear. They're on your neck. You're gonna feel their breath after a while. I'm gonna tell you, right? And just ride with it when it comes, because that's how they come, right? We got a language for that in E5. We call it woo, the coming and going of spirits. They come, right? And if you're doing your work and you're doing the right thing, and they want to see you get it done, they're gonna come. If you're going the wrong way and you're a good person, they're probably gonna come too. That's when you definitely better listen to. So I got to see it now. How many cities now? Because you've got several cities that have bought in and are organizing Martyrs Day. How many cities are we talking about now?
We're talking about, we have Martyrs Day events in Philadelphia. That Philadelphia is the first proclamation that declared Philadelphia, July 5th is Martyrs Day in Philadelphia. And one of the things that they did for their Martyrs Day event, because we have a lot of local Martyrs Day events, and then we have the major national Martyrs Day event at Riverside Church on Sunday, July 5th at 2 o'clock. And Riverside Church, known for where Nelson Mandela spoke, known where Martin Luther King spoke, but people across the country started picking this up.
Memorial there just a couple weeks ago.
Yes, I watched it on YouTube. And so what really got me was people in their local communities have their own martyrs that they want to lift up, which is something I assumed that they would, because I can't know all the people. So I figured we would have a national Martyrs Day event, and then there'd be local events. Philadelphia caught hold of this fast and said they were going to have their Martyrs Day event. They had a proclamation through City Hall declaring July 5th Martyrs Day in the city of Philadelphia. You can read the proclamation on our website, martyrsday.us. So if you have any, and so that was the first one. And why? Because in 1871, remember, we're talking about activists slain for social justice in any era. So all the way back to Crispus Attucks, the indigenous, we're talking about any era. They had 5 Black men in Philadelphia who were murdered in 1871 because they were going to vote. So 1870.
We're not talking about Philadelphia, Mississippi.
We're not talking about Philadelphia. We're talking about Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth. And so 1870 is when Black men gained the right to vote with the 15th Amendment.
Right.
So in Philadelphia, they already had Richard Allen, already had all this Black middle class, already had Black entrepreneurs. These Black men showed up to vote and were murdered, 5 of them. And so what the Philadelphians have done, and I moved to New York from Philadelphia, so I remember them talking about, Octavius Cotto.
Yes.
And so, but I didn't know the other 4 men. So they have on their proclamation the names of those 5 men, and their Martyrs Day is in the name of those men that they're having their local event. And in Philadelphia, they're having a voting rights registration campaign. They're going to have a laying of a wreath. They're doing all of these things. And that's why, and I get chills just thinking about it, because people are taking this on and figuring out what works for their community. Pittsburgh is having a virtual event, and they have about 7 or 8 people speaking at minimum on their virtual Martyrs Day program. There's another proclamation that came out of the 24th Legislative District of Pennsylvania. That's in the Pittsburgh area. Then we have a 3rd proclamation that came out of Longmont in Colorado. So there's someone in Colorado, yes, who decided that she is on board with Martyrs Day. They're going to have in Kansas City, Missouri. They're going to, because our program at Riverside Church is in person and live streamed. And so people can go on the live stream across the country and watch. All they have to do is RSVP. We're not taking anybody off the street. I'm not trying to get, if you're going to come in and invade our stuff, you're going to have to at least RSVP to get in the door. So we're not taking people off the street. We don't need ruckus. So if you're coming in with some ruckus at the last minute, then we're not going, then ours is not the place for you. But if you go to martyrsday.us, MARTYRS, martyrsday.us, you can also RSVP for live stream. There's a Friendship Baptist Church in Kansas City. They're going to be watching the live stream as part of their social justice committee after church service. And so in Lewis, Delaware, another church, they're going to be calling out the names of the martyrs that we have on martyrsday.us website. And so when we talk about the voting rights martyrs, like Jimmy Lee Jackson, like Vernon Damer, we tell these young people all the time, folks died for you to vote. We say that all the time to young people, folks died, but we never give them any names. Look on the website, martyrsday.us. Yes, give them the names, give them the faces so they can actually see. Reverend Reed, he was another one, a white minister from Cambridge, Massachusetts, came down to Selma to march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. White supremacists caught him, and you know what they say about the white people who actually are helping black
Oh,
folks. You know
niggas.
what that phrase is.
That's
They
right.
beat him to death in
And
Selma.
and the press focused on him and not Jimmy Lee Jackson.
Yes. But here we have it. These people, are people, American citizens. These are American martyrs, and whether or not they were citizens or not citizens, these are American martyrs. And that's why I said this is America's Martyrs Day, and that we have to raise the names of these people who died for social justice or whose deaths led to positive social justice, racial equality, civil rights. We need to talk about this and stop being a part of the erasure. Because if we don't talk about it, why the heck should anybody else? If we don't raise these names, why should anybody else care? And as I said, a white woman, Renee Good, shot down in her car.
Right.
This happened this year, and they've erased her already.
They're sure trying
They've
to.
erased her like it didn't happen.
Sure trying to. And they're starting to get a little wild in Minneapolis all over again after all of that protesting folks did out there, and there was some good protesting and some good resistance. Let me just give you some nuggets to build on and to appreciate. Philadelphia, that same weekend in 1982, actually on July 3rd, the late hanging Judge Albert Sabo oversaw and facilitated the conviction and death sentence of Mumia Abu-Jamal. We're trying to prevent some martyrs too, right?
Yes.
And then, of course, when you lifted up the martyrs from 1870, we fast forward and look at the Move bombing in 1985.
I was there.
Yeah, man, you can't make this stuff up. So and we have been waiting, and I'm talking about those of us who do this work around political prisoners. In Mumia's case in particular, we have been waiting for Philadelphia's protest spirit to reemerge, because the bombing of Philadelphia messed a whole lot of people up, as you would expect it would. You would expect to have their whole damn community destroyed and a family bombed because the police don't like them.
Yes.
But that happened. So
that happened. I was in Philadelphia when it happened, and I lived on Spruce Street at the time. It wasn't that part of Spruce Street; it was the other end of Spruce Street. But I was in Philadelphia at the time, and just so even when we're talking about 2017, one of we're gonna be talking about Malcolm, Medgar, in Riverside Church. Yes. So what we're doing
Who's doing the Malcolm talking? Because I run the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee in New York City.
I told our two presenters, you better come strong, because it's like you're gonna talk about Malcolm in Harlem, you're gonna come strong. So well, Herb Boyd is one of the speakers who's going to talk about Malcolm, and he's going to talk about his relationship with Malcolm when he was a young man, and what he learned from him, and in the two books he has on Malcolm. And the other person is a professor at Dr. Andrew Smallwood, who's wrote his thesis on Malcolm as a teacher, and how Malcolm was a teacher, and so
all right.
So those are the two, but we also have Roger Green, who's going to talk about Medgar Evers, who just retired from Medgar Evers College. We're also going to talk about John Brown and abolitionist John Brown, and we have a descendant of Sheridan Hughes Leary, who was one of the Black men with John Brown. We have one of his descendants who's going to be speaking as well at our Riverside Church program, and that's July 5th at 2 p.m. So we also have, you asked for local events. We also have a local event in Hyattsville, Maryland, and that's what I wanted to just cut to. One of our speakers is the mother of a Bowie State student, Black male student, who was signed up through ROTC to go into the military, stabbed to death by a white male who was walking by him as these students were waiting to get an Uber to go back to their campus. They were on the University of Maryland campus. They were going to go back to their campus. This white male walked by and said, "Stand to the left." And he said no. And he took out a dagger and stabbed him in the chest and killed him. And so here's this young man dead. We find out later that this white man had all types of anti-Semitic, anti-Black, anti-everything on his phone, on his laptop, everything. And so there were protests around this gentleman being killed, Lieutenant Richard Collins. His mom is going to be on one of the panels that we're doing at Riverside Church, because out of that protest came legislation. That's why I'm saying we're looking at not just people who are dying in protest marches, people who were activists who were slain, like Vernon Dahmer. And so we had those two examples, Jimmy Lee Jackson, Renee Good, Vernon Dahmer, but also those people like Lieutenant Collins, like George Floyd, like Emmett Till, whose deaths led to social justice causes. Many people have said the reason why they got involved in the civil rights movement was because of the murder of Emmett Till.
Emmett Till,
and
yes,
so
ma'am.
yes, so that's why when we're looking at the word martyr, and we've debated this word a long time in our committee meetings, to look at it from the standpoint, yes, most people think of martyr as being a part of religious calling and being
Very Muslim,
having
by
a
the
life
way.
taken. Yes, but this is we've applied martyr in a rather different way, but
Yeah,
it still
it
is
works.
connected to people who
Absolutely.
are dying for the cause.
Absolutely works. Absolutely works. I got another crackerjack lawyer here that's being modest for the moment. He's our host with the most and our founding producer, and a very popular once upon a time councilwoman. I know they want to say something. They neither one of them are modeling. So, so as we wind down, y'all gotta jump in this conversation.
Well, I'm gonna let Donna go first.
No, I was just listening. As always, thank you very much for bringing information that we need to hear and the community needs to hear. When you spoke about the MOVE incident in Philadelphia, it brought to mind the most recent education by way of Lego and how they incorporated MOVE into their Lego education. And I don't know if you've been on top of the Lego videos that have been circulating during this incident in Iran, but the most recent one included what happened in MOVE and how the disinformation of America continues to flow.
Yeah, and part of the disinformation and reason why we thought July 5th would be the most appropriate day for the Martyrs Day to take place is because the celebration of freedom and liberty and justice for all that takes place on July 4th is said as though and I'm not taking away from the people who are part of our military who fight outside of the country, but in order for this country to move forward, it wasn't based on people fighting outside of the country. It was based on people having to fight their own country to move it forward when it came to social justice and equality and constitutional protections. And so those people whose lives were taken, whose lives were lost, because their rights were not respected, because they decided to stand up and force this country to do what it said it was going to do under the Constitution, that has to be part of what people know and people acknowledge. And I think that's something this country is very good at ignoring. They want to have the fireworks and the craziness and celebration, but they don't want to talk about the seriousness of how we got to have the rights we have in the first place. Human beings made that happen. It wasn't Santa Claus, didn't fall out of the sky. Protesters and activists made these rights happen. It wasn't a benevolent white man who said, yes, you should have the same rights. That is not how it took place. And so Martyrs Day, if you go to the website, martyrsday.us, especially this 250th anniversary, I think is a very important time for us to remember those who paid the high price for us to have the rights we enjoy today. And those are regular people who did that.
And one more question. As you sit around round tables and you talk to scholars and those that have input in these movements, do you find that people are scared of this democracy? Are they scared the of minorities being the majority? What, I guess, when you sit at these tables, what do you think the fear is allowing us to live together as one, if you will?
I'll tell you this, my background began as a civil rights attorney. And I became an academic. I was always an activist academic, even then, in writing books and as a writer. And I've been a writer this whole time. So I've been listening to these
Good
people.
writer, too.
And what I've basically heard is that they don't want people of color to have any control over a white destiny. That has been the case for hundreds of years, that no person of color should control what a white man does. That's been core. And so when you start thinking about the year 2045, when this country becomes majority people of color, that strikes at the
You
core
ain't
of the
supposed to
fear
say
they've had
that.
for hundreds of years.
You ain't supposed to say that. That's gonna scare your white folks to death. And they lost their
Well,
mind when Barack
but
Obama
they
got elected.
but
Lost
they
their
but they
mind.
were already talking about. I've known this for 15 years. I've been talking about it for 15 years. They have been, that's why there's a Project 2025. They have
So,
been meeting and talking about this. The fact that it's
confidential.
this giant secret that nobody wants to talk about, we just haven't found the right way. That's why, sister, I think it's necessary for us to find the right way to talk about this. I just had a conversation 2 weeks ago with a white liberal. When I raised this, he said, you're exactly right. And there are a lot of white liberals who are afraid of that majority people of color. And that's why they're not even talking about it, because they don't want us to know how afraid they are about having people of color have any control over their lives. They have said this from the very beginning, when this country wasn't even a country, that no person of color should control this. And even if you think about the legal system, there was a time that no person of color could testify against a white man in court, no matter what he did.
In our
No
lifetime.
color. They could not be on a jury in which a white man was a defendant, because no person of color is ever supposed to have any control over a white man's destiny. And so that's what we don't talk about in this nation, but that's the underlying fear.
That is the diagnosis of the psychosis. Ed, jump in real quick. We got to get ready to wrap up.
Yeah. That by the way, that's a very real conversation as it relates to black folks representing white folks or speaking on behalf of white folks. That's a very real conversation. But I want to just go back, because just like you, I was living in Philadelphia at the time the bombing happened on Move. I also was very heavily involved in getting Wilson Good elected when I was in Philadelphia. I was an athlete at the time, trained at Joe Frazier's gym. I was actually represented by a black accounting firm that raised the money for him, called Levy Red Cross and Company. And what was interesting is that he was being told by those of us who had put him in office not to do what he did, but he was busy listening to those white folks who were around him and ignoring the fact of what was really going on in Philadelphia at that time as it related to black folks. I mean, that was perhaps, when I lived in Philadelphia, perhaps at that very moment, that was probably one of the reckoning moments for black people in that city. And if you lived in that city, I'm sure you felt it when that bombing happened.
I did. And it was, I remember the trial. It took a long time.
Oh, yeah.
But it took a long time. But when the trial finally happened, and they actually had the two survivors, and they said, I think it was, what was it? Was it 13 seconds? They said that they were in there being burned alive. And then the coroner came in and testified, oh, they were only burning alive for like 13 seconds. It was something like that, either a minute, whatever it was. They actually in court said, went
Only.
through the timeline of the fire coming, and because the police kept shooting at the door every time they tried to get out of the burning building, and that's how they couldn't escape to get out of the burning building. And so when they said, oh, but they died instantly, they said, no, they didn't die instantly, they were burned alive.
Yep.
And they actually counted,
Yep.
it had the jury listen to how long it took for them to die in that burning building. And
Yep.
that was the jury. It was a black lawyer, and who went on to become the president of the Philadelphia Bar Association, the first black president of the Philadelphia Bar Association, who won the case that allowed, and I think it was Birdie who survived, Birdie Africa who survived, and Pam Africa I met years later. But yeah,
Birdie Africa and Ramona Africa.
Ramona Africa, that's right,
Birdie
that's
died a
right,
couple
Ramona
years ago.
Africa. Yes.
No,
So yeah, so I was there for that case as well. That took years later for that case to actually come to trial, but they were finally successful. But in the end, it's like, money can't bring back your family, as all of us know. If all of us have lost loved ones, and if we could have money to bring them back, we would find that money. But money can't bring back your loved ones. But I'm glad at least they recognize the pain and trauma of what it took place that day in legal terms. You know how limited that is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No doubt about it. I mean, my brother was practicing in Philadelphia at that time. And, I can remember, being involved in those conversations with all of them lawyers. And I can tell you, my brother, probably was one of the most prominent black lawyers in Philadelphia at that time. And I can tell you, them brothers was hot. They were like, yo, we're going to prosecute the hell out of these people. And they even I'm gonna tell you, I was involved in some conversations where they wanted to send Wilson Good to jail. They wanted to lock that brother up. And I don't even want to tell you some of them damn conversations. It's a lucky that brother even survived after having done that, because the brothers and if you know anything about Philadelphia, they got a lot of revolutionary Muslims down there, and them brothers were heated. In the hood when I was down there. They didn't give a damn about you being a black lawyer. What they cared about is that they had bombed that block. They were killing, they were burning people alive. And none of them black folks down there gave a damn about taking that to court. I don't even know how it made it to court, but because them brothers didn't want to do that. So, but hey, listen, I want to say I appreciate everything you're doing. Thank you so much. That what you're doing is exactly what the mayor was talking about. We all need to be doing, and that is having these meetings, having these kind of conversations, and being able to put this kind of information out.
Well, I thank you. And it's martyrsday.us is the website. July 5th is the date. Riverside Church is the place. 2 p.m. is the time. It's also on live stream. And if you go to martyrsday.us, you get more information. And there are resources on the website if you want to have your own Martyrs Day event. We put the resources there. And there's a draft proclamation on the website. If you're trying to get Newark, New Jersey, we need a proclamation, Newark, New Jersey. There's a draft proclamation on the website, Newark, New Jersey. So I would really appreciate if we could have a Martyrs Day proclamation come out of Newark. Thank you very much. It's all the information is on the website. If you need my help, there's info at martyrsday.us is the email address, info at martyrsday.us, MARTYRS day.us.
Do me a favor and put that in the chat. And
I already did it. I already got it in.
We'll make sure the city sees it.
Yes, sir. And Donna, before you ask the ritual question, Gloria, I want you to also include when you're on the air and how folks can also still get your book, because that's, we want you the whole package. We want everybody to get everything we can from you.
Thank you. So my on WBAI, my show is Law of the Land with Gloria J. Brown Marshall. Law of the Land at 9 a.m. on Tuesdays, 9 to 10 a.m. on Tuesdays. My book is A Protest History of the United States. and its 500-year journey of protests from the indigenous to slave uprisings, anti-war protests, labor, women's protests, climate change, and civil rights and protests against violent policing is in my book, A Protest History of the United States. Law of the Land on WBAI 99.5 FM, WBAI.org, and also look for my podcast, Law of the Land with Gloria J. Brown Marshall.
And when is the show on? When?
Tuesday
9
morning.
a.m. on Tuesdays. Tuesdays from 9 to 10 on Law of the Land on WBAI. Tuesday mornings from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. And I'll see you on the radio.
Donna,
Well, before you leave, when you're preparing to do the work that you do, and you're preparing for the radio show, podcast, and doing everything that it is that you do, is there a hip hop artist, individual, or group that you listen to that keeps you inspired?
Right now, when I start a new book, because A Protest History of the United States is my 7th book. When I start a new book, I think about the music that's going to get me there. And right now, if it's not Nina Simone, it is Mahalia Jackson, because sometimes I need Mahalia to get me out of bed because I get tired too. So Mahalia gets me out of bed, whether or not it's in the upper room. So I need Mahalia, but I also will listen to the music of the era. I'm working on my first novel, and my novel is historical fiction set in 1930s. So I've been listening to the 1930s right now, and
That's
that's the
great.
music. Yep, that's the music that I've listened to in order to get myself together to write my novel. So that's where my head is. I bounce from those 3 things. But when I need to scrape myself off the bed, when I'm tired, it's Mahalia that gets me up.
All right. Well, I can't wait to hear that. My dad was born in 32, so I can't wait to hear what comes out of that book. So thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you.
Looking forward
Thank
to that,
you.
Gloria. I'm proud of you. We'll see you on the 5th.
Oh, thank you. Power to the people.
All power to the people. Powerful set, and we just halfway through. We just halfway through now. Our favorite young soldier is back, right? The great Adam Marshall has come, right? Adam, how you feeling today, son?
Very good. Happy Juneteenth to everybody.
Happy Juneteenth. Looking on purpose and so serious. Oh, there you go. Okay.
Let's start with that question though. That's just I want Don. I'm gonna lift on your energy a little bit, right? Because we haven't had a Juneteenth conversation. I was trying to get a Juneteenth segment together, but my Juneteenth experts are from Texas and are in Texas and are deeply engaged in whatever they're doing in Texas for Juneteenth. So I apologize that I couldn't get them, and y'all know some of them, and some of y'all don't. But Adam, let me just ask you, son. As a vet and a very active, even targeted now, unfortunately, activist, what does Juneteenth mean to you?
Well, I think about the very, very local aspects of it. Something that I found online recently is the website njslavery.org, and they keep excellent records of town by town. I found this one from my town. This one is of a article published in a paper. A runaway slave named Jess, and that's all they named him by, no last name at all, hunted out by a Thomas Sidman for a sum of $1. And this is my town. This happened here. And I understand.
Tell everybody your towns.
Oh, is it okay? Because the internet, I just.
Okay, tell everybody your town.
Oh, yeah, Bloomfield. But,
Oh, you mean to say that in Bloomfield, New Jersey? Now, what year was this ad for this young man's capture that you saw? There was slaves in Bloomfield, New Jersey?
1806. And what Mayor Baraka said about these efforts needing to be connected together is so true. he stood up for the immigrant community, and I believe all of us activists, no matter what it is, we got to stand up for Black voting rights and reparations. Because if we can talk about New Jersey, it is all of these towns and those heritage English and Dutch names that are well moneyed today. That money came from somewhere.
Sure did. And one of the things that we've also learned in our recent steps in the march towards a reparations bill in Jersey, that over 50% of the people in the state do not even know that slavery existed in New Jersey. So you're right on, as always. Now you've been through a lot just in these last few weeks, right? And I want to commend you for what you've done and how you stood up and what you've had to bear. Most recently, you were amongst those who testified right here in Newark in the special congressional hearing on what's going on in Delaney Hall. You endured an ICE attack that had you beaten and arrested, and after first being targeted. And all you were trying to do, and you can correct me if I'm wrong as I try to sum up all of this that we're talking about, you were in the kind of things you did when you were in the service. You were serving as a medic, just trying to help people, as a part of that organic mutual aid infrastructure that had been developed at Delaney Hall that we call radical solidarity, right? Take a step back and just unpack what that has been and where you want folks to land right now at Delaney Hall, just based on what's been happening in the last few weeks. And you can just start from your testimony and work back.
Absolutely. So yeah, just this last week, I gave a testimony to the Shadow Homeland Security Committee and discussed the conditions at Delaney Hall, the demands of the strikers, and if there's time in the show, I'd be happy to read out that list of demands, and just the conditions of my arrest itself. I've been at Delaney Hall basically since about March 2025 in a mutual aid capacity. I've been supporting the various family members that have come down there to visit their loved ones detained inside. The conditions for the family members, I've had direct witness to this, has been cruel. They've been forced to wait outside in all kinds of horrible weather. They've been forced to wait by metal gates in lightning. They've been forced to wait in sub-freezing, sub-zero in some cases weather, without any kind of protection from the elements. There is no ADA accommodations whatsoever at this facility. I've watched a mother with a disabled child with a specialized wheelchair have to unload her young person into the street with trucks zooming by. This is a very busy section of Doremus Avenue in Newark. And I've just witnessed how this is a place that is 100% designed to break people. And the worst thing that I witnessed, I mean, obviously, my arrest was bad, but the trends around it are worse. And the only way I can describe it is that the chickens have come home to roost. The men who did no-knock raids in Iraq and Afghanistan are the ones shooting into car windows in Minneapolis. The M4 rifles, the armored personnel carriers, the drones that hammered places like Fallujah, Ramadi, Kabul, Jalalabad, they're now staged in Newark and Minneapolis and other places like that. And the worst part of it all is that, like, Abu Ghraib, that has moved to 451 Doremus Avenue. It's the chickens have come home to roost. It's frightening to think about it, and I don't have a lot of hopeful things to say at the moment, but I mean, yeah, that's I can talk about, the conditions of my arrest. So in
Well,
case,
Adam, let me ask you this. We know how things went bad when the governor uh, put the state police in there, and then Newark police came in and they kind of quelled it. Do you see, since those changes, do you see any differences? How has it been? Because I know Mayor Baraka scaled back the Newark police. Do you see any changes, and what do you think is needed now?
unfortunately, I have kind of disconnected myself from a lot of the on the ground organizing. I am concerned that I'm a liability to my networks. Um, During my arrest, I was scanned in what was known as the Mobile Fortify platform, and I have the feeling that the conditions of my arrest were something like a catch and release program. I have no evidence to back that up.
Say what you mean by that, because folks, we're educating folks with this platform. Say what you mean by catch and release. I'm with you, but I want folks to understand what you're talking about.
Absolutely. In Iraq and Afghanistan, there was a process known as targeting or target development. And what they would do is they would find persons of interest, people that were prominent within networks of organizers, of organizations, and if they found some like mid-level people or high-level people, didn't matter which ones, they would just catch them, scan them into a system known as Tigers, and then release them, and then figure out who they associate with, and try and throw networks into chaos that way. I don't have, like I said, I don't have any direct evidence of that being the case, but it's been a concern of mine. I have been back to Delaney Hall on a couple of occasions. I helped to facilitate the wedding paperwork of a few individuals. So I definitely, some of the humanitarian mission I'm still connected to, but I'm not as good right now at observing the larger trends on site.
That's a lot. I want people to appreciate what you just described, right? And it's one of the means by which people are targeting that many people are not familiar with, right? And it's dangerous. It's dangerous because you just never know where that's going to go and how far that's going to go, right? And I appreciate you having the judgment and the humility to not to put your comrades first, right? Because I know your heart is there, right? You've been, we have seen you since you've been on that post. If we can share military language, right? We've seen you on your post from the beginning. We see your passion, we see your dedication. And I know that has to be hard to have to pull back for the greater good of everybody else's security, right? And everybody doesn't get targeted like that, right? And some people have been targeted. That could have gone so many ways, right? Some people are targeted and are actually eliminated. There's a lot of ways that being targeted can play out. Could have been targeted, charged with something bogus, and you could be facing a bunch of years. Right? If they could put charges on Congresswoman LaMonica McIver, they could put charges on any of us. And every once in a while, they will touch some of us. That's their way of letting us know that they have that capacity. So I want to appreciate what you just laid out. And Donna, you were asking your questions about the time that the state took over. Adams' incident took place before, right? That was around right after. Andy Kim, Senator Kim, had been maced, and Musab Ali, who's former president of the Board of Education in Jersey City. Musab was supposed to be on with us a couple of weeks ago. He had some connection issues and couldn't get in. But there's been this long train of stuff that had been happening and that had escalated in those recent weeks. And this young man was all up in that, and I just appreciate how you done. Now let's go back to a couple days ago. You're in a city hall, Newark, New Jersey, and surrounded by, folks that most of us have no direct contact with, but you were literally participating as a civilian in a shadow federal hearing on something of the magnitude of the life and death situation that is Delaney Hall. How was that for you to deal with?
It's honestly been stressful. I'm usually a pretty private person. I don't like to be out in public, all that kind of stuff. But I'll do whatever is needed. That's the long and short of it. I guess I just want to say, like, I got to thank, like, all the people who have thrown so much support behind me. All of my Eyes on Ice comrades.
Yes.
Just so a lot of religious figures, a lot of people from different groups, and coming back out into just regular life after that whole thing, and then having the ability to testify over there. I couldn't have done it without all of the people that have supported me. Oh, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say Pop, because 100% this was one of the driving things that got me into the movement, got me into the struggle.
Well, we're glad you're here, son. We are absolutely glad you're here. Now, let me ask you this. This is what I was concerned with. I'm talking about the hearing. There were so many other voices that I wish there was more time to be heard, right? You had Kathy O'Leary and Gabriella Soto sitting right behind you as you were giving your testimony. And Kathy has been one of the religious forces with Pax Christi, New Jersey, that has been stalwart there. Gabriella Soto, the wife of Martin Soto, one of the strikers who was transferred out of Delaney, right, by virtue of his participation in his role in that hunger and labor strike. And she, that young lady really found her voice standing up and speaking for her husband, and she's still speaking up and standing up. So there were a lot of other voices that, I wish that had been heard, but I'm glad they were there, and I'm glad so many of them are still there. And, the link right off the top of my head, I don't have the link right in front of me, right off the top of my head, on how folks can get involved. And I'll try and find it as we're talking also, because there's also a link where folks can contribute to the radical solidarity, the mutual aid that's taking place. There are ways that folks can participate. Anything you want to share as we wind your segment down in terms of how folks can support and folks can get involved, you go ahead and do that right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'll definitely send over the links for the link tree that has the GoFundMe's for all the various families, as well as Eyes on Ice, the mutual aid efforts. But I would actually like to just raise up the demands of the striking women's unit.
Yes, please. And because that all of the attention that we've gotten around the hunger and labor strike, the strike of the women is not getting as much attention, in my modest judgment, right? I hope I'm wrong, but I'm not hearing the same. I'm not level of coverage and whatnot, and what women were already facing in terms of abuse and violence and pregnant women, all kinds of stuff that was already going on before they even went that far. That needs to be lifted up. Please lift that up, son. Thank you for that.
So we got 10 demands. Number 1, to release all the women, priority given to those under 21, the sick and the mothers. Number 2, to independently investigate the officer who has been sexually abusing the women. Number 3, to restore visitation privileges. Number 4, to provide meaningful legal support. Number 5, to contract cleaning services and to stop forcing the labor of the detained. 6, to provide qualified nurses and doctors and to stop giving incorrect medicines and denying access to care. Number 7, to replace the current food supplier to meet basic nutritional needs and to accommodate religious and medical diets. 8, to repair the plumbing and HVAC on the second bathroom in the women's unit and all the other bathrooms. 9, to provide safe drinking water. And 10, to retrain GEO Group staff to ensure dignified, lawful treatment of the detained people.
Straight ahead. Straight ahead. Yes. Yes. And I think I just found it. I want to put these up in just a minute. I just found some of them. Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. Adam, thank you. Donna, I asked the ritual question as we wind this down.
Well, Adam, you know the question. So when you're doing the work that you do, is there a hip hop artist, individual, or any music that you listen to that keeps you inspired?
Lately on my mind, I've had this wonderful version of The Poor Wayfaring Stranger done by Rhiannon Giddens. I like that it kind of connects us back to the struggle of 1860 to 1865, and we need to complete the work.
Okay. Well, thank you. And we will be looking that up, and we appreciate everything that you do. Thank you, Adam.
Send me that link too, Adam. I've got my hands on some articles, but I don't have the direct link. I want to make sure we got that. All right.
I'll put it in the chat for the StreamYard.
Yes, sir. That'll work. That'll work.
All right. Sounds good.
Right. And we appreciate you. Right. All eyes on ICE, everybody. ICE out of Jersey shut down Delaney Hall. Right. Let's get ready for our next segment. I'm going to put this article up. I've just found a powerful article.
So did y'all get I was a week early with the Happy Father's Day. So let it be known that it was all politics, all local, that wished everybody a Happy Father's Day first.
Yeah, well, we got the Sunday wrong. I think that's what it was. You know, but you know, sometimes folks get so busy they forget when that is anyway. You know, but mothers, they don't ever forget that. They don't get that wrong.
That's right. And that was my purpose. I was like, let's be on it. I don't want to get that. I don't want that to be said of us that we do not honor our fathers.
Appreciate it.
We've got a little shortage in that conversation, to be real. We got to wear that. And unfortunately, some of us that try, we got to bear for all of them that didn't.
But listen, we've got a little time before your next guest come through, Zaid. Let's talk a little bit about, if we can, about Carmelo Anthony, right? The mayor mentioned that a little bit, right? But in terms of a young man being sentenced to 35 years in prison, right? And the fact, and remember, Zaid, we talked a little bit about this last week, right? You know, we had a brief conversation about it. But it seems like more and more information is coming out. But
that's right.
You know, the thing is that if there's a video out there, I don't know what the problem is with just, I mean, because remember, we went through the same thing with George Floyd, right? Remember, they didn't want to release the video, and it took almost, you know, well, sort of like the mayor said tonight, the entire community had to come out and put pressure, right, on the DA and of course all of the elected officials to release this video. I think that until people locally, yes, and around the country begin to put pressure on folks, we're not going to see that video.
And the fact that the video didn't come out before. Well, we know that there's an appeal going on now, but the trial and the charges have happened all before the video was released. And it seems, and the jury did see the video, so we're told. And
evidence, yeah.
But we don't know what instructions they were given in terms of seeing the video, right? I mean, because you would want to think, or I mean, Ed, as an attorney, you know, you would want to get what they see and what they can take from that video as tight as possible. And I'm sure that's what their attorney did. But also when his father came out, and I know I shared that with us, with the video of his father coming out talking and making all of these racist remarks is horrible. It just seemed, and it also takes listening to the father. One would think this is probably what he's learning in his household, right? Because that's how, children learn. But what was spewed out his father's mouth is horrible, and I don't dismiss that to somebody hurting. I dismiss that to somebody who's racist.
Yeah, that too. But the thing is, Donna, is that we can't forget the climate we're in, right? Mm-hmm. The climate. So Donald Trump has created this climate in this world, or in the country right now, particularly because white folks feel emboldened, right? That they can just attack black folk, that they can just call Michelle Obama a dog, right? Mm-hmm. This is what we've come to.
Right.
So, when you talk about, a young man who allegedly was being pounced on by two 250 some odd pound white young men.
White young men.
Huh? Right. A group, yeah.
Yeah. And so, and I don't necessarily know what the stand your ground law is in Texas, but it would seem to me that everybody else has a right to stand their ground. What is the problem with this young man standing his ground? That's why we need to take a look at it. But the problem is, and one of the things I said last week on the show is that in the state of California, because of the kind of charges and the amount of time, even if they filed the appeal, he can't get out of jail while they're filing the appeal, because the law works. It says that because of the amount of time in his conviction, they can file the appeal, but he has to stay in prison while that's going on.
While they do the appeal. And what's interesting, there was already a case in Texas where there was a case where there was, it seemed similar circumstances where I forgot that case, but somebody else was stabbed and they were not charged with murder, and they were given a lesser. And then there was the case with the police officer also who walked in the wrong apartment. That was Texas as well. And how this person who is trained, so as you're listening to the line of different scenarios and cases that should have been considered when a judge was making this sentence. And also there's the issue of the relationship of the judge as well. So
yeah,
he appears to be, he should have recused himself,
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like there's all kind of stuff that's wrong with this. And what I said last week, it seems like, because they were, I heard the family talking about the instructions they were given from the lawyer. It seems to me like it was ineffective assistance of counsel, right?
It was deliberate.
Yeah, it's just based on what the parents are saying, right? The advice that they were given not to talk to certain people, what not to say. I mean, it's not unusual for an attorney to tell you, to be, not to make certain statements and so forth, because you don't want to put that in the public. It could be used. I mean, we get all of that. But I think that some of the direction that they were given in terms of publicizing it, right? Because one of the things we know is that with most Black cases, and particularly like cases like this, Black folks have publicized those cases. That's one of the reasons why people go to Reverend Sharpton, so that he can publicize it, so that you get more eyes on it, right? White folks have a tendency not to harm you as much when everybody's looking at them. When people are not looking at them, that's when they want to put you under the jail and convict you potentially of a crime that you didn't really commit. So I think that, and you don't really get justice. And then, I mean, I don't know, what I heard is that, again, I haven't read the case, didn't really follow it, but they said that there were 3 jurors that were women, black women, who were not allowed to sit on the jury, and it was an all-white jury.
Yeah, because after the jury was set, I would love to see, picking a jury, because at the end of the day, he got, well, if it was 12 jurors, because sometimes it was 12 or 10, but they were all white that actually sat.
Right. Like, I mean, it just seems like it was all, but again, that's why it comes down to black folks being registered to vote, right? So they can potentially be in that jury pool, right? So I don't know what all is going on out in Texas. What I do know is that this young man being given 35 years just doesn't seem right to me.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, I was worried about the boy getting the death penalty.
Yeah, that too.
Texas is a death penalty state. I was with Gerald Horn earlier today. In fact, Rosemary, who's going to join us in this next segment, Rosemary Mealy was with us. We were all together for Gerald Horn's conversation. And we had a conversation about Juneteenth in Texas. And, one of the things that Gerald said is that if you want to understand how low or how bad or how wrong or how raw this racism is going to go in this country, pay attention to what's going to happen in Texas.
Yeah.
Right? Texas has been a unique laboratory for the most racist expressions of racism in this country in each of its epochs, right? Yeah. I mean, they've gone to war to either to be an independent nation that had the right to own its own slaves, right? Yeah. Before it became the state of Texas, they built Mexico, right, to become an independent state,
right?
Affirm the right to so Texas has always been loaded with the baggage of the worst expressions of racism in this settler colonial forms. So that doesn't surprise. I was actually more taken, just as taken, and in this case, it's also gotten there. They're both right around the same time. Cyrus Comac Belton, the young 14-year-old who was killed by the Korean grocer in South Carolina. It was. That's the one that really that actually got me more because we lost that kid.
Yeah.
And it's Latasha Harlan's all over again.
Yeah.
And it's.
But again, Zaid.
And go ahead, Ed, because I was gonna say the egregious part in that case, he was running away, and they were saying he was almost a football field away. And
they chased him down. Yeah, but the thing is that. Again, Zaid, I think what the mayor said is important. We can't continue to react, right, to events when they happen. We've got to be organized, right?
That's right. That's right.
That wasn't that. What's been said is that this guy's been doing that and harassing black people for a long time in that place. Yeah. Why is it even open?
Yeah. Right.
Right. If the community was organized and
because it wasn't the first time, right? Mm-hmm.
And there should have been a march on that, publicity put on that, right? So that place would have been closed down and black folks would have known this is not a place that we're going to patronize. Put them out of business.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Right. Mm-hmm. But there's no organization. And so, like the mayor said, I mean, we were, we can organize and get together for an event if it's enough sensationalism around it. But other than that, we do that when we're back to business as usual.
Well, the fortunate news that did come out of that, because we did hear of the person who made the remarks about I dare black people to boycott Asian people because if you did, you wouldn't have. And then he went down through a whole list, which caused people to start rethinking how they're spending their money, and particularly women in terms of, hair, beauty, nails and that sort. And so we, as a community and directly Essex County and more specifically East Orange, benefited because there's a beauty supply store in East Orange on Central Avenue that, as a result of that negative response, ended up getting a whole lot of good feedback. And now this beauty supply East Orange has gotten a whole lot of business. So that was a positive that came out of the whole negative situation.
And that beauty supply store is black owned?
Yes.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we should we can put them out of business, right?
Mhm.
But again, it comes down to
Certainly when the businesses are in our community.
huh?
Right.
Certainly when the businesses are in our community.
Mhm.
But we gotta organize, and we can't do it at the last minute. We gotta get it done. You know.
And we have to be mindful of, here we are on Juneteenth, and one of the things we should be thinking about is spending our dollars, and we always, we talk about it haphazardly about how many times our dollars circulate or the lack of circulation in our community, and we need to be more mindful. Everybody works hard, so when we go out and spend, we should be really thoughtful in how we spend our money and where we spend our money at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now we're ready for our next segment. All right. All right. All right. All right. Looking forward to this. Looking forward to this. All right. Great Rosemary Bailey, the great Baba Tony Menelik Vandermeer are here and back. Rosemary, it's been a long time actually since you've been in this platform with us. Right. With us just recently. Right. This is the first chance in a while that we've got a chance to talk about Cuba. Right. And we just had a very moving memorial tribute to Sada just a few weeks ago at Riverside Church. Standing room only. Whole lot of folks in that building that look just like us. And a good sea of young folks in that building that look like us. We rallied the very next day in Midtown Manhattan for Cuba and didn't see the kind of response from our community that we thought we should. And from that comes this call, Black radical solidarity with Cuba to reaffirm itself. It's very urgent as Cuba comes under uh, threats that we have not seen in a long time, and facing the crisis, the stringent character of the blockade in its most recent expressions that we haven't seen in a long time. And I couldn't find anybody better to talk about the urgency of this and the depth of this and the importance of this at this moment than Rosemary Mealy and Tony Vandermeer. Appreciate having you both on, having you both back. Happy Juneteenth and all of those things, even though we don't really have a whole lot to be happy about. I guess the way we set this up. But we've got an urgent call. We've got an urgent call. And I just want to really just give each of you a chance to just start from where you're at, just what this call is and why it's so urgent. And Rosemary, we'll start with you. And folks who do not know Rosemary Mealy, Rosemary's history is stellar. There's a whole new generation, and I'd love to see this. And we want to do something with you even more directly to really add to that. Her incredible book, Memories of a Meeting, Fidel Meets Malcolm, that captures the great story and great moment at the top of the 1960s. I don't think that was an accident of history. Well, Harlem, under Malcolm's leadership, received Fidel and became the gateway for this long-standing tradition of radical solidarity with the Cuban Revolution. Rosemary, why don't you start off this conversation for us?
Well, good evening, everyone, and to those who are listening and watching your program. Thank you for inviting me, Brother Saeed. I know we only have a short time together. I'm sharing this with Brother Tony, but this is a pivotal moment. If we want to launch this moment in the tradition of Malcolm and Fidel, who met, as a matter of fact, on September 19th, 1960 in Harlem. And for 10 days, Fidel stayed at that Hotel Teresa. It was that meeting is so symbolic that it has taken a generation of Cubans, especially, who know that history very well. And we still have a lot of it to teach our children. So when we see what's happening in Cuba today, that the United States government has imposed what we must call it, a genocidal siege on Cuba. And what I mean by that, the United States government under the current administration, if you want to call it that, is attempting to recolonize Cuba and to recolonize the entire region and to recolonize the entire world. So it goes after Cuba because Cuba represents all the things. And I really want to paraphrase this. Cuba represents all the things that Malcolm said to Fidel. You have done everything in your country that we're struggling to do here. And that was in 1960. So despite a 66-year-old economic blockade against that country, it has surged forward as a beacon to the rest of the world to what a vision of a new society could be for all of us, right? So what do? You stamp out a reality. You stamp out the reality of the fact that you have a country that's not based on a capitalist mode of production, which is one of the reasons why. And when I say capitalist mode of production, what I mean, Cuba does not have an economic system, right, where everybody owns at the top and those in the middle and the bottom know nothing. It was a redistribution of the wealth, which then allowed the state, which is a socialist experiment. And when we hear that word socialist, we are taught in this country that it is a negative, the same reason why terms like communism are taught as a negative. But when we teach our youth and we teach our young people in education, when we teach different kinds of economic systems in the society, then we have to come out saying, well, what do you think provides free healthcare, free education, ability to people to thrive culturally, to have a system where the whole idea is to support your technology, advancements of technology and medical. And on top of that, the kind of society that Cuba is a kind of society that wants to share what it has with the world. And that it has demonstrated that. It has demonstrated
incredibly.
And so what we're faced with now is how do we support Cuba during these moments? And Black people have to step up to the plate. We have to show that there is a direct connection between what is happening with us in this country and the whole strategy of demobilizing and committing genocide against Black people, right? These are our brothers and sisters who identify with their Afrocentricity. Without a doubt, they show it every day. And so the time has come that because of this oil embargo that Trump has instituted, they haven't had oil for almost 3 months now, but yet the country is functioning, but it's functioning in a very, very difficult situation. So the least that we can do in this country is to show our solidarity through action, through demonstrations. Don't just talk about it, but do something about it. Support material aid campaigns. And that's how we get involved. And tomorrow, Saturday, we say all roads lead to Harlem. Black people are going to come out in Harlem tomorrow. And at 1 o'clock, we're going to stage at the Hotel Teresa, which is really symbolic again. And we're going to send a word to Cuba that we are here for you and we support you and we care about what is being done.
Baba Tony, you got to jump in, right?
Yes. Well, thank you, and greetings to Rosemary. She's hitting all the right tunes. And forgive me, I'm in transit. I got stuck somewhere, so I had to, get Uber. But I have to say, the first time I actually went to Cuba, and being from Harlem, when I got to Havana, I felt like I was in Harlem. I mean, it's appropriate for the rally tomorrow on 125th Street where Malcolm, used to talk to the people at. And it's important for not just Harlemites, but Black people across the country to stand with Cuba in terms of what Cuba have done in terms of, not just in terms of supporting people who had resisted, but, supporting Africa and so forth. Again, it's extremely important that we recognize that it's raised an important question by standing on self-determination and sovereignty, because it raises a question about our condition. Either we are self-determining and we're exercising sovereignty, or somebody else is controlling what we do. And so we can learn from Cuba, but we have to make sure that that example, that experience is not wiped out, that it perpetuates, it goes on, and it blossoms, in terms of, so it's our duty, it's our responsibility to stand with Cuba at this important moment. Cuba is a place that does so little with so much. And as Rosemary pointed out, that despite the hardships, that the Cuban people have found a way to continue to press on, to persevere. And it's something that I definitely salute wholeheartedly.
But Tony, people forget that the U.S. has a base in a concentration camp, that's what I'm going to call it, on Cuba at Guantanamo. And somebody, this young macho man for Trump and white supremacy, that's now the Secretary of War. They ain't even the Secretary of Defense, but Secretary of War. They let you know how they're coming. Even gone to Guantanamo recently, right? What say you about that development? Because that was something we have not seen.
Well, the Cubans are actually laughing about that, in the sense that they raise the question: is that what happened to his pants? Where's his pants? It becomes a public embarrassment. And of course, we know what that is that's bravado. That's just trying to, posture and so forth, right? But one thing I know about the Cuban people is that they're going to resist. They're going to continue to find a way. And this is not new. Since the Platt Amendment, the U.S. has taken possession, of Guantanamo. But more importantly, is that the founders of the American Revolution was trying to annex Cuba, in order to make an extension, a slave extension, and so forth. In fact, what's even more interesting is that the fact that Marco Rubio, had offered to give $100 million to Cuba, that's the same $100 million that they had put in, the President Polk had put in to buy Cuba from Spain. These guys are clowns, but they're not only they're clowns, but they're dangerous clowns. Oh. And so that, the Cubans have resolved to say, yeah, we're not giving it up, and so, we're going to rumble to the very end. And so we have to really learn from them. But we don't want that to happen. And I think it's on us to make sure that that the U.S. don't go in there. And as Lennox Hines said, in order to go through Cuba, they got to go through us. So we have to organize our community to be ready to stand with Cuba in case anything goes down. But as Rosemary said, at this moment, we have to do everything we can to support them. I know it's a difficult moment, but people can still go down there, under, support for the Cuban people. And so what we're doing in conjunction with Rosemary is doing is that we're taking a phase one of a delegation down, as a suitcase delegation. So we could take an extra suitcase of things, particularly for, the Children's Hospital and the maternity hospitals and so forth. And then later on, we try to raise additional resources so that we can send down a container with that. But we have to stand with Cuba and the Cuban people.
Let me ask you.
And Tony, I'm sorry, speaking of that container, what is it that you need to put in that container? What is it that you need people to bring so that those containers could be full of what?
Well, one is that part of what we've been thinking about, there are other kinds of ways to use solar energy products, whether they're, batteries or little lamps or lights and so forth that Cubans could use, but also various kinds of hygiene products, for women, basic hospital medical supplies, to do that. And so we're trying to work with some doctors as well and see if we can get some of the, the prescriptions that they need. But whatever it is, we want to make sure that it's within the guidelines, to do that. But more importantly, it's about people also making donations so that we can also pay for those containers. We're working through the community and we're putting up a way to contribute to help us, to do that and buy whatever necessary things we need in terms of getting that container to go. And we'll update you on that access.
And let me ask you this. Because one of the things, go ahead, Rosemary, go on, jump on in.
No, I know we don't have much time, but one of the things that we're doing in the New York area, there is Cuba at one time had the highest infant mortality rate it's the lowest infant mortality rate in the world, in a developing world. And because of this oil embargo, the infant mortality rate is dropping. So one of the things that it's really bad. One of the things that we're doing through an organization called Global Health Partners, we're doing a contribution piece with them. But anyway, because of the time, I'm suggesting that people go online.
Zaid,
Yes.
Can she bring her camera down so we can see her face?
Rosemary, they want you
my
to
face?
raise your camera.
Yeah,
They-
she's
we
bring her
can
camera
see
down.
your head.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
It's all right.
I don't want you to see me tonight. Okay. One of the things that we're doing, as I said, we are, the initiative is to supply Cuban hospitals with life-saving equipment and to institute early preventive intervention to ensure healthy and mothers and babies. So I would suggest that people go to Global Health Partners, GH Partners, ghpartners.org. That's ghpartners.org. And there's more information on this campaign that we have around helping to combat Cuba's fast rising infant mortality rate. Children are the future. And we have to be supporting this because we know about the infant mortality rate, maternal health in this country and the lack of, and we're involved in that kind of work domestically. So what we try to do is link these two issues together. But right now, we can help Cuba with this whole question. That's, again, you want to go to ghpartners.org.
Excellent. Putting that in the chat in just a moment. Now, let me ask you both this. Both of you are also master teachers. You got a new generation that's paying attention to you. Baba Tony, you're doing that under the duress because we know that Africana studies and the teaching of our history is under attack all over the country, not just in the South, but what you're facing right there at UMass Boston. What are and you know, one of the things that has stood out about Asada's impact on this last generation is this emergence of these young women in the chant, but often it has been disconnected from actual organizing and struggle. What are you seeing, and what do you want to say to young people in general who need to take that next step out of love for Asada and appreciate for those who took care of Asada when she needed it?
Well, I want to say one of the big classrooms that I just went to was the one that Rosemary and them had organized as a memorial for Asada Shakur. Because, you know, we got to go back to basics, and that we can't expect the institutions that colonize us to be the ones that educate and free us. And so while we do have, you know, scholars in these academies, we have to make touch base within the communities. And so I think that the idea of us uplifting Asada is uplifting the very best of us and what we need to do and where we need to go. And so I would encourage, you know, as Malcolm said, that we have to see for ourselves, think for ourselves, and speak for ourselves, or others will do that for us. And so that we have to encourage our young people to be very critical about what they see and hearing, you know, and even what they say. And so that, but we have to also tap into those elders, and not just professors, but, you know, grab grandma and grandpa and ask them to tell them their stories, right? Because the center of knowledge is in our communities and not at the universities. But we have to follow up on that. And there are many, you know, learned people in our community who've made many sacrifices that we need to learn from. You know, the role that the civil rights movement played, the people in SNCC played, the people in RAM played. You know, like, we need to be searching those people out and hearing their stories and what we can learn from them, because some of the scholars are not telling those stories, you know. But, you know, we have to begin to create and produce knowledge based on our relationship with some of these elders. But you know, but just like Asada said, you know, it's our duty to win. We have to take the initiative. We have to show the leadership, and we have to create what we're doing. For example, a community university in which, you know, we're using our resources to educate, you know, young people, and to share knowledge with young people and to learn from young people.
Yes.
I would just like to share that one of the things that I'm doing, I've been mentoring a group of young folk who are really proficient in social media, and
Yes.
we have an Instagram link that we really would encourage, and the content is geared towards young people, okay? And it's called Carlotta's Warriors for the number 4 Cuba. That's CARLOTAS Warriors, the number 4 Cuba. It's actually named after a Lukumi Cuban sister who led uprising against in the whole struggle for against colonialism. And Carlotta is revered. As a matter of fact, when the Cubans went to support the struggles in Angola, they called it Operation Carlotta. So our young people went to Cuba, came back, wanted to do something and wanted to speak to young people. So that's the way that other elders can pass on this information and utilizing the technology. And so that's one of the projects that we're doing. And then, of course, we're heading for Cuba in July with a group of young people who will be going. Sorry.
Okay. You keep going. He's getting out of the car.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'm good.
We're heading. Okay, can I talk now?
No, you're fine. You're fine, Rosemary. Just keep going.
Oh, okay. We're heading to, and the other thing, like the brother said, we can still travel to Cuba. So we're taking a group of young people to Cuba in July to celebrate the Afro-Feministas convocation, the 5th one. These are a group of Cuban Afro-descendant women who are doing all kinds of work throughout the island in terms of working with young people. And every year they have a convocation where there's it's incredible presentations. They have a fair. They do a self-help kinds of things, demonstrations around healthcare. And so we'll be participating in that again this year. And so, like we said, we can still go there legally, particularly under it's called Support for the Cuban People. That's the criteria. That's the legal piece that you would go to travel to Cuba.
I want to, Donna, I'm gonna make sure we got the right link. I got
Right. As you know, Zaid, because you've gone with us, is that I always make sure I get some young people to go to Cuba, and it gets them to see things, for themselves. And so we want to encourage young people to definitely travel, in particular, when there's opportunity or create opportunity to go to Cuba, because it's a very transformative experience. It's a little bit different than, what we see and what we experience here. And so usually when I bring young people back, they're very motivated. They see some things that's possible. And that's one of the things that we can learn from the Cuban, the Cuban Revolution. I've taken students to see, the what they call the Alphabet Museum, and so forth, how they dealt with, literacy, in Cuba, also with some of the culture workers. And of course, we was in Guantanamo. And as you remember, we went to Loma de Chivo, right in the community where the young people were there, center stage. I've been taking one young man who brought us some skateboards down there, to teach the young folks down there how to skateboard. And it was just amazing watching them interact, and sharing, their perspective. But we have to see the world outside of what the empire tried to get us to see.
Indeed. Rosemary, you were just on, and I didn't get a chance to hear the whole show. We had an interruption in our service where I'm staying. You were just on the air with Charles and Inez Barron and our little sister from the nation, Nisa Islam. She opened with this very, it was very, very real. She see in her own eyes and her own way, a very, very, glum picture of Cuba. But I want you to both let everybody know that in spite of those conditions, in spite of that hostility, we got to talk about the incredible, brave, selfless, and resilient character of the Cuban people in the face of that adversity. Y'all got to turn it up on that, and we'll wind up.
Well, the Cubans are saying, despite all of I wasn't on that program. I was on another program, but I can understand. There are a lot of folk coming. Unfortunately, there are a lot of folk coming back who have never been to Cuba before. So what they're seeing is the reaction of this blockade plus the oil embargo. They're seeing the garbage that's piled up. They're seeing the fact that there's no medicine in the pharmacies. They're seeing all of it. But what they're missing is still the vibrancy, the music, the culture, the dance, people getting together, mobilizing to do some of that cleanup that that's spreading all over the cities, the kind of mosquitoes and things like that. There's still a vibrancy of the culture that's happening, and that's the link that connects the Cuban people. People are coming together collectively for food. There's plenty of food in the country, but you can't get it because there's no transport to bring the food into the city from the countryside, right? So when you talk about Cuba now, and if you've never been there before, I think one of the things that people need to talk about is how Cuba is living, how yes, there's a struggle going on, but yet that there's a defiance, and you see that and you hear that. You have to talk to the people. They'll tell you it's a difficult moment, but over there, we're bringing together Abuelita's program. We're bringing her food stuff with us. We're cooking collectively. I haven't heard of anybody starving in Cuba, okay? But clearly the caloric rate has dropped. There's a food, so there's a problem with food, yes. But at the same time, people are trying to collectively survive during these moments that's why we call it economic genocide, okay? And like moving away from whatever the sister said quickly, we stand by and we watch genocide of what's happening in Gaza, what's happening in Africa. We cannot allow that to happen 90 miles away from us, because history is going to come back and say, where were you all when this was happening? It's on us. And so, I'm so passionate about this. And I think that people who go, they have to put it in a perspective, and you have to know the history of the country before you go. And I always tell the young people, and anyone who travels with us, go there with an open mind and listen to the Cubans, listen to what they have to say, and then come back and tell the truth.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Zaid.
On the same question, where I'm going to go, right? In full disclosure, I'm not just a Malcolm Muslim. This brother is also my Babylon, right? There's a vibrant African culture, right? And the spirit of our ancestors is very there. Is there, and dancing like at the heart of all that dancing resilience. You got to tell folks what that looks like. Baba Tony, folks really need to hear that.
Well, I want to, just this past week, they was having a conference at the University of Guantanamo, which I was invited to come. And so because of the problems, they said, well, we're going to still do it, but they did it online, and they did it through WhatsApp. So, just in terms of how resilient they are. And I was just so impressed, so I had recorded my presentation, and then we communicated online, and so forth. And I'm not a Spanish speaker, but nevertheless, I was still able to engage and participate. I had people translate. And it was such a rich conversation. And part of the presentation was focused around the cultural authenticity and what we can learn from Assata Shakur, Eugene Godfrey, and Wande Abimbola, right? And just the kind of
folks who that is.
Well,
folks know a little bit about Assata, but they don't know the other two.
Yeah, well, so Eugene Godfrey was from Curacao, and he was a resident of Cuba, and he did programs on radio for Havana and Santiago, Guantanamo. And I traveled with Eugene throughout the islands and been on those programs with him. This was a brilliant guy who spoke like 13 different languages and so forth. And it was through Eugene who really got me to visit Cuba. And he was the one that hooked up Assata to do the foreword to our book on State of the Race, around it. And Wande Abimbola is the foremost authority on Yoruba indigenous belief system of Ifa and so forth. And so what I was doing was really talking about the ethics and the character of Yoruba indigenous thought, and showing how, looking at how many people embrace those indigenous practices in Cuba, and talking about character and resilience and so forth. And so I was saying is that what kind of culture is it that we are trying to uplift? Are we trying to deal with a culture that has values and character for the people? Are we dealing with a culture based on the domination and oppression of people? And so I talk about Assad and talk about Eugene in terms of their understanding and their experiences with culture. And so to Rosemary's point is that, while, things are very difficult, but Cuba has a very important culture of resistance and a historical culture, going back, to the slave revolts, going back to the War of Independence and so forth, and the role that, African people have played in that process. Antonio Maceo, the general, who fought battles from one of the island to the other, shot 25, 26 times, and even, when he had no choice, he protests, in terms of the surrender, and so forth. So, and so that's part of their own culture, their way of resistance. And so, but they're going to also find joy. They're always looking for solutions to address the difficulties that they are in. And so even when I call, I feel kind of bad, like, how you doing? Like, and they says, well, things are difficult, but, we're moving on. We're living like, we're trying to make it better, and so forth. And that's inspiring and so forth. And I know things are difficult and you can see it in people's faces and what they're doing. But the point is their will to continue is important. In fact, I forgot who was, might have been the last poet to say it, but they embodied that whole idea of blessed are those who struggle. Oppression is worse than the grave. It's better to die for a noble cause than live and die a slave. That's that's where they at.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I mean, and it was interesting, as people are talking, well, what are they doing? Are they mobilizing and what have you? People forget that at the triumph of the revolution, it was called the Committees for the Defense of the Revolution.
CDRs.
And that is exactly what they were, the CDRs, right? The people know how to mobilize. That's why the Cuban ambassador in Washington said a month or so ago, and I'm paraphrasing her, but everybody can get it. She says, if they attempt, meaning this fascist government, then it's going to be a bloodbath.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Because
That's right.
they are not going to. It's not going to be like a Venezuela. No,
That's right.
man.
That's right. That's right.
Trust me.
That's,
The Cubans
that's
will
right.
fight to the
Yeah.
end.
That's right.
Because that's what they believe in. They believe in the defense of the homeland. And so that's, yes, it's hard, it's difficult, red alerts and everything, but I mean, life goes on.
That's
Life
right.
goes on.
Many years ago on public television, and it was a military outfit that did it. Rosemary, Tony, y'all will probably both remember. I think it was called a Defense Monitor. Can y'all remember that? And the highlight that they did on Cuba, what did they focus on? That because of the hostility that they get on a daily basis over the years, Cuba trains regularly for what they call the war of all the people.
Yeah. Well,
coming from that medium, I'm like, I'm glad they're paying attention.
Yeah. Well, and it's important is that even with the conditions the way it is, it's also it's pushing the Cubans to really go back to the core of its values. You understand? And I remember I was in Havana, and this is when it was around Fidel's birthday. There was a hurricane there. I'm looking at TV 3 o'clock in the morning. Fidel is on TV directing the civil forces to be able to be prepared to mobilize right after the hurricane. Next morning, got up, folks was in the street, taking care of business. I mean, that's amazing, and so, and especially now because of the conditions, it's rallying the people despite, the type of impact that Western ideas have had on the Cuban population. It's remobilizing them to say, we got to look at the values that we stand for, and then we're not going to let somebody come in and bully us.
Leaning on their socialist principles.
There you go.
Right. I mean, I've lived there the last hurricane, I was living in Cuba, right? I mean, it was a hurricane of, I forget, it was 2023. Yes. I mean, it was windy. It was amazing. I was scared to death. However, we got up the next day, the trees were full. People were already out in the street cutting, there's no lights. We went to the dam to wash up. The mobilizing of the community is you see that. You see the mobilization of the community coming together, doing natural disasters. So you can imagine if there is an occurrence of this country attempting to attack, the mobilization will be it will be something to behold. And maybe we go back to recalling the words of Frederick Douglass, who during the struggle against Spain and for liberation of Cuba, he called on young African men and women, go fight with Cuba.
Forget about that.
Part of our history.
Oh, line. That's how far back that line of that solidarity goes. Douglas himself. Yes, ma'am. So you get ready to say something about it, Tony. Go ahead, jump back in.
No. It's true, but I think there's, one of the things, and I don't want to be pimping Jesse any more than he's done his share, but the Cubans believe in keep hope alive, and that's the main thing, and it's important for us to learn from how they've been able to maintain their self-determination, and sovereignty, and doing it their way. And so we know that there are changes, and there are always going to be changes, and there's always going to be contradictions. But the Cubans are going to make sure that those changes benefit their people, and that's the most important part. But right at this moment, we have to get the churches, the sororities, the fraternities, the unions, the students, the educators, to really put this on the agenda and find creative ways to stand with Cuba, to support Cuba, so that this crazy system don't go in and try to, like destroy, what the people have built. That it's a shining light, for the world. And Cuba is not paradise, but these lessons are important in terms of how do we live life. And I haven't traveled many places, but wherever I went, I always came back and said Cuba was one of the safest places and one of the most people-oriented places. I'll never forget, and I love Nigeria. I was in Nigeria and was driving through Ibadan, and there was this dead body on the road, and the people kept driving by it. And my soul was just so aching. And the driver said, he said, but it's been there for 3 days. Right. And I said that if Nigeria was a quarter as organized as Cuba was, it would be a powerhouse. Right. And so you can see the difference that, Nigeria has been more, sort of kind of thing oriented, and Cuba's been more people oriented, because that's what the British have done in terms of unravel that particular culture. And so there's a lot really to learn about a people oriented society, in which you try to deal with the distribution of resources more equitably, so people can be able to benefit. That you make it so that education, and health is a priority, and this is the contribution, that the Cuban people have made and fought for and sacrificed for.
If I may just jump in.
And Mr. Rosemary, and Ms. Rosemary, and Baba Tony, what is it? And I think you've spoken to it earlier, but in closing, what does it say as a country that will go in and disable? For what purpose? And to continue to allow it to go and to harm people. What does it say about us, and what should Americans, is there any call to action in terms of we should be doing to call our legislators and say, listen, we should not be allowing this to go on? I mean, I know we can do things, but there's other things that the legislators should be held accountable as well.
Thank you for that question, sister. One of the things, I never say our government because it is mine. So I always put that out. But listen, people need to understand that the reason why the United States is able to attempt to carry out this destabilizing policy is because there is a law that was passed by the U.S. Congress called the Helms-Burton Law, right? It's a law, it's codified, that allows the U.S. to take Cuban industries to court, etc. I have always pushed that we need to be demanding as part of our demands. Our demands are no war on Cuba, let Cuba live, but there's a backdrop to those demands, and that demands comes back to the United States, where we need to be calling for a repeal of the Helms-Burton law, because our people many of our people do not realize that there's a law that is allowing the United States to do this. And whenever any president comes into power, he or she is able then to come up with executive orders. So that's a part of our history that we've been trying, we need to teach that piece of that history, that like any law, our people don't know that there's a law that gives the U.S. the so-called right to and what we call an extraterritorial right, that this law tells other countries that it cannot trade with Cuba, that it cannot have free relationships with Cuba. So then you have the additional piece added on that whenever a president comes in, he kicks in an executive order that just wraps around Cuba to make it even worse. So I think that in our education, that's a piece that we also have to include in our education, to teach people about this draconian Helms-Burton law.
Well, Rosemary is actually really raising a very important question. And, it goes to sort of what Malcolm, sort of kind of articulated about the ballot or the bullet.
Yes, sir.
And so, but it also raised a question of how do we engage in terms of addressing policy issues through the political process? Because if we don't do that, then that means we're going to have to find another methodology to change the system, which we aren't necessarily ready for at this particular moment, right? And so, but what you raise is that we are the ones that have to keep this system accountable. We're the ones that have to make them do what they do, and that we have to find a political process in doing that and not kind of get left out there. But you asking why the system does it, it's not that we allow them, but well, partly we do because we aren't doing as much as we can. But it speaks to the issue, and I was just thinking about this. I was trying to write a piece called how under Donald Trump's leadership, that how the American nation state have become Rosemary's baby. Now you know what Rosemary I'm talking about.
Rosemary's baby.
That's right. Right. Okay. Want to be clear on that. Right.
Devil's baby.
So, that's right. But that's right. Exactly. And so Du Bois talks about this when he wrote Dark Waters, and he wrote a piece called The Souls of White Folks.
Mr. Du Bois. Thank
right.
you.
He talked about the souls of white folks, and he was talking about the colonization of Africa by Europe. And Du Bois saw China and other places of color as being oppressed. But now China is a whole world power, right? So it's a different shift that we have to really consider, but America has become the product of Europe devilness, right? Because even Du Bois talked about them being devils before Elijah Muhammad did, right? And so we got to really understand that what we are dealing with, the malice, the viciousness, of this system. And so anything it does is because we're going to make them do it, and we're going to make them change it. But we have to organize ourselves to do that, or otherwise they're going to continue to do it. Because look what they did to Gaza. Look what they did to Venezuela. Look what they did to Iran, just dropping bombs on them, and what they're talking about doing to Cuba. So these are some vicious people, but we have to be organized to push those elected officials. Says hey, and know that whatever they do is going to be a consequence on our behalf. We have to be willing to create consequences for them.
Jesse's name came up a minute ago, right? Well, your thoughts and how we can build on the trip that Congresswoman Ro Khanna and Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. Recently did to Cuba, right? Where are the bright lights in the landscape of our elected officials in terms of solidarity that we can build on?
Well, I think what happened, those visits pushed the Congressional Black Caucus, really under the leadership of Yvette Clarke, to at least come out making a statement denouncing the fact that the oil embargo was really a violation of international law. So you know, the petty bourgeoisie plays a role in this too, because they have access to be able to go there and to do their fact-finding piece, right? And they can come back. They have access to the media, the press clubs, where they can raise that issue. So I think, you know, there are a lot of people in the Cuba Solidarity Movement who in the past have just dismissed working with legislators. But I think that's an important, I mean, I can do it to some degree, but I think that's an important element that you have to work with. You know, you can't it's just not going to happen with demonstrations in the street, because, you know, they're power brokers. They're those who are interested in the politics. We have to work with them. We have to build, quote unquote, a united front against fascism. That is our goal right now. That's what we need to do. And that's why you got to bring in every element. Like Ron Daniels just came back with a delegation. Okay, lock them into this. Lock them into the the American Medical Association, who never put out anything about Cuba before. Okay, so they have a statement there. So that, you know, we have to, it's so hard. You have to monitor all these things, and you have to be a part of the movement. People may say, well, how do you know all this? I'm a part of the National Network on Cuba, which is the umbrella organization for all of the Cuba Solidarity organizations in this country. And you can, I know what's going on with the LA Hands Off Cuba Coalition, but the problem that we have is in many of those spaces, there are areas of the US where people are not involved. It's just like when you're organizing in the rural areas. There's so many places in this country where Cuba is not even on, you know, people only know Cuba from what they hear from the right-wing radio. So we have so much, we have work to do. We have to create these coalitions, and we have to go back to connecting to our brothers and sisters who are doing grassroots work, but linking it to how Cuba is important and can teach us.
That's right. And you know, and to Rosemary's point again, is that we are looking between fascism and bourgeois democracy, a democracy that's being dominated by the super rich. And so we have to navigate bourgeois democracy to push it to what we want to be a democracy. You understand? But we have to be engaged in the process, and we have to push people and deal with it, because, you know, like 10 people just can't go and just do something without the support of the people. So we got to learn how to build, you know, the kind of united fronts and coalitions and work together and learn how to deal with our differences and not getting caught up in these ideological debates, but deal with what is the political question that we got to confront at this moment. And it's really trying to shift, you know, from this fascist state we're in into a different space. But then when we get there, we still have to continue to struggle to push it and radicalize it even more. But we have to build the momentum, the base, to organize our people to do that. So we got a lot of work to do, and we got to go back to basics.
And we also have to understand, you know, what may be reformist at one point, it may not be. For example, the Cuban Communist Party just left a national meeting this past week, okay? And they have come out with a way of beginning to look at the role of private enterprises. Now, 25 years ago, we would have never even thought of that. They're moving back to capitalism, but they're trying to find creative ways to deal with this, you know, with creative economic ways. So they're talking about investments from Cuban Americans. First, they'll have the first dips at it. Okay, but they're able to control that, right? But I mean, they're already there's some folk in this country saying, oh, well, Cuba's moving towards a capitalist mode of development. They're moving towards a mode of development for survival, and exactly. they're in control of it, you know. So I just wanted to share that because I'm reading now what the new policy is saying.
Yes, very, very interesting. I had a conversation yesterday with someone about those changes, and it's important to, you know, to look at that. But the main thing is that the Cuban's going to drive it. I mean, you know, it's looking at what China had done, what Vietnam had done in order to benefit its people. But the main thing is for them to maintain their right to sovereignty and self-determination and to guide that process, in terms of what's going to happen. And so, but let's see, how that opens up, and what kind of negotiations there are within the U.S. to back off, and to let Cuba live. But in the meantime, we must stand with Cuba.
Totally. Donnie, you trying to come off mute?
No, I'm here. And so Rosemary and Baba Tony, thank you for being here. Thank you for the work that you continue to do. So the question that we asked everybody is, when you do the work, is there a hip hop individual or group or any music that you listen to that keeps you inspired?
What? I'm going to say, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I'm going to say that Brother Obi just put out a piece dedicated to, Asada Shakur and Pauline
Uno, who's been on this show before.
That's right. And that album, I'm telling you, that is one of the most important cultural products in a long time. And there's a piece on there about Asada, freedom fighter, that this sister does in opera, and it's absolutely fabulous. I mean, I've been moving around it. I mean, we got a list. I mean, that's a bad piece, right?
Trying to find it right now.
That's right. It's a bad piece. So I mean, I love it. I play it in the morning and at night, and I think Mumu Fresh got a little piece on there. I mean, that's a bad piece.
Been trying to get her on here too. Our little brother out from New Bedford is close to Mumu
Eric.
Fresh. Yes.
Yeah. Andrade. Yeah.
Get them on here. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Go ahead, Rosemary.
And Mother Rosemary?
Well, I have a 20-year-old granddaughter who who keeps me abreast of what I need to be listening to, and so she's constantly sending me drops from. It's usually a combination, a mix that I can listen to and I can hear. So I rely a lot on her. I can't really tell you exactly who all the names are, but and then I also heard what that group with Obi did. I think that's great too. We need to get it out there. But I rely on my 20-year-old granddaughter who told me something a couple of weeks ago. Well, actually, maybe a month ago. I asked her. She just graduated from college. She was a summa cum laude at 20 years. Thank you. So I said to her, "What are young people thinking about the future?" And she says, "You know what, Abuela?" She calls me Abuela. She says, "Abuela, you have to have hope." And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Because if young people, if we don't let them know that we have hope, then that means that they can come down on us really fast because they know that we've given up." I thought that was such a profound statement, for young people saying we have hope, and we're going to act out that hope, with our words, with our music, and with our culture, with becoming excellence and struggling against racism on many of these college campuses where they are the minority.
Mother Rosemary and Baba Tony, we're at the end of the segment, but I don't know if you had the opportunity to listen to our former First Lady's speech yesterday and how much she said a lot, but a lot of it was about hope. So it's funny that you said, and I think at one point when you walk into the Obama Museum, there is a big word there's a big wall with the word hope on there. So that's interesting.
I found the Asada Shakur, Pauline Lumumba Music Project in recognition of Cuba's Henry Reeve. That's the name of the medical brigade. Brigade. Members in Mother Africa. I'm getting ready to do this. It's called Presenting Kotomalela Bolingo.
Yes.
We dropped that in the chat. That's that incredible album that Baba Tony was lifting up. I'm looking forward to hearing that.
And that's by Brother Obi, you said?
Well,
Yes.
he produced it.
Him and Russell Shute are co-producers of that. And I think, whether it's, all the, so the NAACP, Urban League, BT, they need to give them brothers an award for that.
Yes, sir.
Well, make sure you submit it because that's how it starts. It starts with our submissions for the NAACP.
Yes.
So listen, I got a question because how do we get and I don't know if there's a tour director, tour advisor. How do we get everyday regular people to consider going on vacation to Cuba? How do we do that? Because I'm talking about people who don't want to necessarily say like I belong to some sort of revolutionary fight, but I'm interested in going to learn the culture. I'm interested in seeing, what this is all about. Because as people think about, the conversation that people are having about attacking Cuba, sort of like what they did with Venezuela, going in and kidnapping the leader and all of that. How do we make it so it's more inviting for everyday regular Black folks to be able to consider going down to Cuba? How do we do that?
You are just part of the process of what we are in fact doing to be able to raise the conscience of people. To first let them know that they can go. Number two, that the people down there, look like them. Number three, the people who are trying to do something different than they are exposed to. And I think that by us engaging in these kind of conversations, because remember, we are going against a multi-billion-dollar year media conglomerates who are trying to spin another narrative. And so we got to raise the consciousness of stuff. So, what's happening tomorrow, in front of 125th Street about Stand With Cuba, we got to get people to go and participate in that. When people like Rosemary and other people, myself, other who are doing trips, to be open to that and listen to that. But we have to build the community in a sense to make them aware. We got to tell them about a sister Sarah Shakur and what they did for Sarah Shakur. We got to tell them what they did for South Africa and Angola. We got to tell them what they did for Rob Williams and so forth. That these are people who stood with us at the most difficult of time, to do that. And so, but it is our responsibility across the board to start talking about these positive things in these relationships versus us dealing with these kind of backward cultural pieces on Sexy Red and, Housewives of Atlanta and so forth, is that we got to use cultural products like this and expand it. We got to start listening to the kind of music that Obi and them is putting out. So we have to do a lot of work to reach the ears and the eyes and the hearts and the minds and the souls of our people to understand that important relationship.
I also think
You muted yourself, Rosemary.
I also think that we can use the thematic events that take. Well, we have been using them. Let me not. This is not.
Yes.
We have been using, for the brother who asked that question, we have been using thematic interests as a way to take people on trips to Cuba. For example, every year there is the Cuban International Book Fair. Okay. So last year, Paul Coates, brother Coates of Black
Classic Press.
He Black publishers announced this in their bookstores when their customers who knew nothing about Cuba, but they love books and they love reading books, even though we had to scale down the delegation, but at least they got there, right? So now they're multiplying. Now that a lot of those people now are making contributions to the IFCO Pastors for Peace, 60,000 pounds, getting 60,000 pounds of material aid to Cuba by August. People who never went before. Okay, then there's a brother out of New York who organizes every year taking folk to the jazz festival. That's a group of folk who love jazz, right? So they go to the international. So that's what I mean about these. Cuba has everything. So we organize people around themes as well. Then you have the medical folk. So then you have like the young people who are just interested in wanting to go. And we have to let people know. We have to tell the truth. We have to let people know that the luxury hotels and what have you that they may be used to, quote, on regular tours, and it's not a tour because the U.S. government does not allow us to go there as tour.
Yeah. Did she break up?
So for like educational trips, you can go, and like she said, theme trips like to jazz and things of that. Like Baba Tony, as an educator, he can organize a group, and you know, and you know, Mother Rosemary, you could continue out, but I was just saying, Baba Tony, he could organize a trip, educational trip, and take us down to allow us to see, you know, from a historical, you know, Cuba from. I don't know what they've been talking about from like Mariel to today, you know, you can do a whole trip about that and you know, and have people sign up to go learn and be educated.
Right. One of the limitations that we have right now, and we have to let people know, is the impact of the oil embargo on traveling. It used to be that we could travel, say, from Havana to Santiago, but you organize a trip, and it's limited about, you know, you could go to Pinar del Rio, which is in proximity to Havana, and we have to, in the orientations, we have to tell people that. We also have to, in organizing the trip, we also are politicizing people because people don't know that there's only one hotel in Havana where U.S. citizens can stay. One hotel, right? The U.S. government does not allow us to stay in any of the hotels that are owned by the Cuban because they say they're military hotels and therefore the money is going to the military. So there are what's known as casa particulares, which are like B&Bs. So for us, we've resorted to staying at them. But so while we're organizing people to go, we're also educating them about the politics. And then when people come back, even if they just want to write a letter to their congressperson, you know, that's important. Or they want to push their local city councils to pass a resolution denouncing the blockade and Cuba being on what's known as the state sponsors of terrorism list. So the answer to the brother is we have experience doing this, and we're doing it. It's just that we need to reach out to a broader sector of our people.
But I think that you know what I hear from
Ed is unofficially giving us some extra time. Y'all keep talking.
Yeah, I think that what I hear from a lot of the, you know, professional brothers and sisters who are not necessarily politicized, you know, they say, you know, I would love to be able to go down to Cuba, but I think that all the information that you just gave is important. Like there's only one hotel where Americans can stay, because most people don't even know that, right? But and they don't, you know, they don't know that they can't necessarily walk into some sort of tourism office and say, you know, this month or next month or before the end of the summer, I want to go to Cuba, that they can't necessarily go in and do that because, as you just said, it has to be identified as something other than you going on a vacation for 2 weeks. You know, I can remember though, Jay-Z having going down there. It didn't necessarily go he went as a tourist. And I think he made a song about Obama trying to tell him he couldn't go down there as a tourist. How did he get into the country and how did all of that occur? Do y'all remember that?
Yeah, there were certain categories in which people can actually go down. But I think that what Obama actually done in terms of trying to open Cuba up a little bit more was a very good thing. And so when Trump got in, he shut all of that down. And so this goes back to the political question of, you know, like we're in like 26 major different cities, you know, and many of them have Congress people. We should be calling, you know, those Congress people and those senators and really saying like, what's up with that? You know, why are they doing what they're doing? So we have to create the pressure. And so I think, you know, it's not so much a vacation in Cuba, but it's more or less, extending solidarity. It's just like if you got some family, you know, in Mississippi or Alabama is having a hard time, right? You know, is that, you know, you're going to go down there and sort of help them out. And sometimes, you know, you might have to stay in that extra room or something, you know. And so we got to figure out how we navigate the circumstances that Cubans are going through, but to be able to show support, to show solidarity, and to really talk about it. Because it's one thing when you hear what the U.S. has financed in terms of the image of Cuba versus what the Cubans are actually saying and what you see for yourself, right? And so this is what we're encouraging. And we're saying is that, you know, work with the people who have developed these relationships with Cuba to go down with them, because they know the ins and outs in terms of, you know, the casa particulars, you know, how to work with community groups to help them get along and so forth. But building those community groups up. I know when we went down in 24 of August, and we took a nice delegation, you know, down there, and it was during a difficult moment. But, you know, one of the things that was important was it uplifted the spirit of the Cuban people to see folks coming down in solidarity with them. You know, I mean, it was beautiful. And so, you know, just a little gesture goes a long way, you know, in terms of the Cuban people. But we have to find more ways to intensify this level of solidarity with the Cuban people. And so, you know, what y'all are doing now, we need to talk about, you know, people who've gone now. We need to talk about Asada, Rob Williams, and Mary Baraka, you know, the Panther. We have to talk about their experience with Cuba. We got to talk about the history of Cuba. We got to talk about Antonio Maceo, you know, what they call Maceo, you know, like James Brown, Maceo. You know, we got to understand those connections,
right. Yes.
you know, to Cuba, the historical connections, so people aren't believing what the Western media, you know, is shoving down their throats. But now it's time for us to stand up and to stand with Cuba. So it's a lot of work. It's not easy work. It's not the kind of vacation work. It's going to require some sacrifices, in fact, you know, for people who sacrifice for us. And you got to remember is that the the U.S. was trying to get them to give up Asada and other folks. And the Cubans had a most crucial period. They said no. They said no. That's off the table. We're not negotiating that. That's some honorable behavior. That's some real G stuff. You know what I'm saying? You know. So we have.
And Barbara, even back to what Ed was saying, it seems like if you're looking at it from a capitalistic standpoint, that it was crazy how you have all of this thriving industry, you know, because tourism is a big industry, and how it was able to be shut down so quickly because you had everything from airplanes to cruise ships, everything moving in there. So which was opening up, opening up opportunity on both sides. So just to see that was, and it happened almost in a blink of an eye. And that to me seemed very, well, among other words, it was very challenging because usually when it gets to dollars, that's where people usually stand up and say, no, you're not going to stop, but how they let it shut down. So that's very interesting, that how they allow all of those streams to just stop flowing on the basis of, I don't know what, yeah.
Economic war. It's economic war.
Sanctions are
That was the Helms-Burton law.
Which was passed.
The law said, right?
Gloria days, by the way.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yeah.
Or is it something?
No, we can hear you, Mother Rosemary. Yes.
Okay. The Helms-Burton. Well, okay. Obama opened it up. Remember, I said within the context of the Helms-Burton law that presidents can do presidential edicts. They can bypass aspects of the law. Okay, so then when Trump comes in, he then decides that that's not going to happen anymore. So he shuts down the U.S.'s ability to have, it was still people to people. It wasn't called tourism, okay? But what I'm trying to say, yes, it shut down the U.S., our ability, people in the United States' ability to travel, but the tourism continued from other parts of the world, right? But what they did with the implications of new laws under Trump, because there's no fuel, right? The tourism industry has just dropped to almost zero because no planes can land in Cuba because there's no fueling, for flights coming from abroad. So again, I get back to the law, the impact of this law, how it attempts to, number one, starve the Cuban people and economically commit economic genocide. So I'm just saying now we have a loophole where we can still organize people to go to Cuba. And we have 2 travel agencies and then Brother Menelik, he does his own work, but we do have 2 travel agencies in the U.S. They're called, there's a group of travel agencies in the U.S. who are part of a group that does a lot of positive work in travel. But there are 2 travel agencies. One is called Amastur Travel. Then there's Global Exchange, and then there's 3, Marshal Travel. Those are the 3 travel agencies in the U.S. that do Cuba travel. And so what happens is you create an itinerary, right? You find an event that's you may go to that people may be interested in, and then you set it up and you organize it. It's not easy. It's easy to do once you got the group together, and you get a price and what have you. So it's durable. It's just that we need to be doing more outreach and getting people to go. And people are really upset that they can't go to Cuba. And then you got the people who are afraid to go now because they think it's going to be an invasion. So you got to work with that because the propaganda is so deep, right? So we keep telling people, no, you can go. Cubans would never want us to come if they knew we would be in total harm's way, right? So our goal now is to get at least 500 people to go. 500 people will be going. 2 chartered flights are scheduled to fly for Fidel's centennial in August. And then, we have our group going in July for the Afrofeministas colloquium. So there are a lot of things that are going on July, August, September, October, November, December. And this is where our outreach becomes important to get more people to go on we call them journeys instead of tours.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Let me
just raise this one thing because we're fighting a propaganda war, and the recent propaganda tools of the empire has been to attack Raul Castro and attack President Miguel. Right? What can we say to our base, to our community, to correct the distortion of lies? Just about who those 2 brothers are.
Well, I'm not trying to be facetious, but that's elder abuse. You know what I'm saying? I'm going somewhere else about the real history of. Raul is being charged with murder, right? We got some other folks that need to be charged with murder that ain't being talked about. So I wanted to unlift that. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, if we want to, let's talk. Let's go back as far back as they want to go back. If they want to go that far back with Raul, let's go back in terms of the Middle Passage. Let's talk about what they've done in terms of slavery. Let's talk about what they've done in prisons. Let's talk about them dropping bombs on cities. Let's talk about Tulsa and so forth. So the point of it is that, we have to provide a counter narrative about the kind of atrocities that these folks have done and haven't even made amendments to. The question of even reparations is still a standing one, because it's just not about, 40 acres of mule. It's about the murders that they committed in terms of bringing us up here. So we could go deep and heavy, but part of that is raising the consciousness of our people, and not to have a distorted reality about the American dream and so forth, versus understanding there's been an American nightmare, in terms of what we're dealing with. And so you're right. Their propaganda is to, make, to go after Raul, go after, the president of the country and then his wife and so forth. These are like ways of trying to position themselves in the media and to grab attention and so forth. But these are dangerous people, who've always been dangerous. And that our solution is to organize, to develop, united fronts and to really push, for policy.
I like basketball, I like baseball, I like football. But when I go, to and see the Celtics, and I go by there, or the Red Sox, and there are tons of people coming out. You look at what happened in Knicks game. We need that kind of enthusiasm with people around some real righteous issues, issues of social justice, and not somebody dunking a basketball and so forth. And I understand people get excited, but it's our job to get people excited about social justice, social change, and how to make sure that we're going to get the health care that we need, the medicine that we need, the education we need, the housing, and the resources to live. So that's on us, and part of a program like this is to help raise the consciousness of people to address these contradictions that we are in fact dealing with. They've been poo-pooing Cuba for the longest time, the communist this, the communist that, and so forth. Yet they're dealing with China, they're dealing with Vietnam. It's a big contradiction, that we have to address. So we have to raise the counter narrative and teach our young people to think critically, and to respond in that way and not fall for the okie doke.
Well, I think, if I may say, I think that's an excellent point, and I'm always trying to bring it back home too. I mean, there is a movement, right, I think it's the NAACP, who are trying to get young Black athletes not to accept sports scholarships to Black colleges, because in the face of our being no more voting rights, why should our young people be playing football at Texas, University of Texas, Florida, at those Mississippi and what have you? We can't even get that's a parallel level. A movement attempting to get our young people to see that, gosh, you don't even have any voting rights. So therefore you're going to go and play for races, right? So we are struggling on two fronts. The other front around the sports pieces is that when we look at what's happening with the draft is coming up, right? So one of the things that we're looking at in the fact sheet that we're developing, the next one, the first one is out. I hope you can share it, Brother Zaid, the one that's we're going to use tomorrow, that really brings some comparisons to what is happening and why we should be supporting Cuba. But we need a fact sheet for our young brothers and sisters to know that if you are going to go in the military, you are going to be on those ships that will sail into near Cuba, and you'll be killed.
But listen, we out of time. But you brought up an interesting conversation, because the mayor alluded to that tonight as it related to the NAACP and as it related to these basketball teams and so forth. Because that is a very strong conversation, because you got to remember that these young people who've been playing sports all their lives get an opportunity to go to some of these outstanding colleges, and then get drafted for millions and millions of dollars. That's going to change the total trajectory of their entire family. And their family has never been political in their lives. And now those of us who are conscious are asking them now to be conscious on behalf of Black folks, period. That's a question that I think, that's a question I think that for all of us.
It's not new. It's not new.
Muhammad Ali. You're right. And this is where we bring up Muhammad Ali. And this is where we bring up, those brothers in 69, and so forth. And so forth, is that we have to go back to Bailey and show them. It says, like the sister said, it's not new. And you're right, is that they keep putting this basket of bread before hungry people. And sure, people are going to say bread, but we have to understand. And they did it with drugs. I come out of Harlem, right? They saturated with, so people thought the drugs was the only way out, and so forth. But you know what? It created resistance. It created it created other avenues of resistance to deal with that. So we have to raise the counter, to that, and we have to struggle with these athletes. This is when we stand with the NAACP in cases like that and say, no, don't do that, because these folks are going to go through a lot of changes on these college campuses when people just want to exploit their bodies and so forth. So it's a question of values that we have to get our young people to address. It's the same thing in the music business. Folks jumping up on the cars, popping it like it hot, half naked, so they could get some money, right? But we have to create another way. We have to tell our people they got to stand on character, you see, and so forth. So that's part of the struggle. That's part of the contradiction that we're dealing with. But we do have great examples. I mean, Muhammad Ali was so beautiful, when he stood up, and said he wasn't going to go in terms of Vietnam War. That impacted generations of folks and so forth. So we need to talk about that, remind them about, about that, about John Carlos.
What'd you say, Zaid?
Most recently, Colin Kaepernick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Listen, we out of time, but y'all got to remember, Jay-Z turned on Colin Kaepernick.
Yes.
And Jay-Z just turned on the Target boycott. So
yes.
y'all got to remember, this generation of young people, it's all about getting the bag.
That's right. You're right. You're right. But listen, remember what happened in Mississippi. 1-year-old shot by the police, right? Why by Walmarts, right? So, now I don't know to what degree Walmart is complicit, but we got to go back to withholding our dollars, right? So, Jay-Z, all of them could be impacted, but it's us raising the consciousness. And this is why I say that Obi's album is something important, because it's speaking about the upliftment of people and not the exploitation and the commodification of people, whereas they use these artists to create a wedge against us. Yo, man, you could get gold, you could get a car, you could get the flyest woman in the world, the most muscular man in the world, and so forth. That's the struggle we have to raise, because you're right about what's happening, but that's the consciousness. We have to work on shifting the consciousness, around that, and understanding that all the money you can have, look what they did to the president of Venezuela. They went and took them, so they could lose what they get as soon as they get it. And we have to let them know what kind of country we're in. But we have to build character, and that's the real. That's what Asada was about. That's what Malcolm was about. That's Harriet Tubman. We have examples, and we have to promote those examples and say, don't fall for the okie doke. And you're right, people will do that, but we have to push, a set of values that's going to be more liberatory versus enslaving us again.
So what I'm going to ask is, Baba, Tony, and Mother Rosemary, you could probably have the last word after I say this, is that we ask that we get you back so that we can have that necessary conversation. One, about what's coming up in the summer for Cuba, and two, how do we continue to have our young people be the voice of the conscience of what we need right now. And then I'm going to say my third subject is, I believe Jay-Z is holding out for something bigger. So go ahead, Mother Rosemary. You were about to say something?
You muted yourself.
I didn't want to use my last moment, but I'm at the point of lifting up a photograph of Jay-Z and Beyonce in Havana, speaking to Cuban children, embracing them and what have you, and blowing it up and say, where are you all now? What are you going to do now?
Okay.
I think with some of these people.
If he did
Call on them. That's right.
Push them. We got to push our legislation. We got to push those in our community. They have to do better, because at the end of the day, we are the people who fund them. So we have to do. So thank you for being here, and you giving us your song, and thank you for the extra half hour of it, educating us and keeping us on point, that we have to have you back to talk about the next conversation. Zaid and Ed?
Yep, I absolutely agree.
Kamal Siddiqui. Talk about Asada, of her partner and father of her child, is still in prison. Free Kamal Siddiqui. Go ahead, Ed.
Well, no, I was just going to say, I appreciated the contribution that you both made. I think that I'm a lot more educated now about Cuba than I was before you guys came on, and so I appreciate that. But at the end of the day, I would love to see folks be able to go to Cuba like they go to Curacao, right? And because I had an opportunity to go down to Curacao when, you know, folks were talking about doing business to bring college students down there. And I was amazed at how those Black folks down there, you know, were able to organize and control that country. So, I mean, there's an opportunity for us. I guess we just got to figure out a way to get around it in order to be able to put that political stuff, you know, sort of underneath the rug until we get people there to be able to start teaching them somewhat. Because, you know, you got a lot of afraid Black folks, man. You
Yeah.
know, they scared as hell to go down there.
That's
and
right.
Get involved in the politics.
They're not the ones we need to go.
That's right.
But listen, but Zaid, you heard the mayor said we need 3,000-4,000 people, and all they're gonna be these conscious folks. We got to get them.
Got to.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to wake folk up.
Yeah.
Who says, wake up, Negroes, or you're all through?
And I was early last week, but while you're still here, happy Father's Day to you, sir.
Thank you.
And as well to you, Zaid, and all the men in our community. Happy Father's Day.
He is indeed Baba Tony Menelik Vandermeer. He got a whole lot of father up in him, and we're very proud of and we love for sure.
Right.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right, y'all. Thank you. Appreciate y'all.
All right.
All right. Peace. Yes, sir.
Let's give our salutations. Let's thank everybody for coming through, brother.
Oh man, it's been a full night. First, we got to thank, of course, for the mayor's forum. Even though it was an abbreviated one, it was always loaded. Want to thank Gloria Brown Marshall, the loaded woman who was, you know, the law of the land, who's got this Martyrs Day thing that she built out, and I'm very proud of her, and looking forward to Martyrs Day on July 5th at the historic Riverside Church, where we just were for Asada's Memorial, 1 p.m. We, of course, will be in the street tomorrow, 1 p.m. for Asada and Cuba at 125th Street and 7th by the Hotel Teresa, right? Adam Marshall, brave young man who served this country and abroad, and who came back serving this country and being attacked in his capacity, serving the people here as a medic, and the way he did in the military was obscene, but he's endured that and still serving the people in his own unique way. Very proud of him. And of course, our last two guests, two hugely important elders in the movement, Baba Tony Menelik Vandermeer and Rosemary Mealy, author of Memories of a Meeting, Malcolm Meets Fidel, right? And one of my mothers of the Black Panther Party. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Great show. Great show. Great show. Great show.
Any final words, Donna?
No, just have all of men. Thank you for all that you do in our community, and happy Father's Day.
Yep, I agree. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers. Happy Father's Day, Brother Zaid.
And not just to the uncles and to all the pop-pops and everything, to the men in our community. Thank you for holding it down.
Well, until next week, y'all. We'll catch y'all next week at the same time. You know, if it's Friday, y'all know it's time for All Politics are Local. So we'll see y'all next Friday. As my brother Zaid said, we'll catch him where?
In the whirlwind.
Catch y'all in the whirlwind.